Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Vilgax got the Omnitrix first, villain origin story. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Prize. The bridge of the Chimerian hammer hummed with anticipation. Screens flickered, data streamed across consoles, and drones moved with practiced precision. But no one dared speak. Their emperor was in one of his moods. Vilgax stood motionless before the main viewport, tentacles quivering slightly, the only visible sign of his mounting impatience. Stars streaked by as his massive warship cut through space, pursuing a tiny pod that had eluded him for far too long. "My lord," a drone finally broke the silence. "The pod has adjusted course again. It appears to be heading for the third planet in the Sol system." Vilgax didn't turn. "Earth," he growled, the word crawling from his throat like something venomous. "Increase speed. I want that pod before it breaches the atmosphere." "But sir, our engines are already at maximum capacity," the drone never finished. Vilgax's massive arm shot out, lifting the unfortunate crew member by its throat. "You presume to tell me what my ship can't do?" The warlord's red eyes narrowed. "Perhaps I should find someone more capable of following simple instructions." "Forgive me," the drone gasped. "I'll redirect power from non-essential systems." Vilgax released his grip. "Good. And deploy the recovery drones. I want a perimeter established." He turned back to the viewport, watching distant Earth grow gradually larger. After today, the galaxy kneels. The bridge erupted into frenzied activity. Nobody wanted to be the next example. The recovery pod shot through space like a bullet, containing the most powerful device in the universe. Small, unassuming, yet destined to change everything. Inside, the Omnitrix pulsed with faint green energy, its programming already seeking a suitable host. Azimuth had designed it that way, always seeking, always adapting. The tiny Galvan would have been horrified to know who was about to claim his creation. "Sir, we're within range," announced the tactical officer. "Recovery drones deployed." Vilgax clenched his fist. "Display visual." The main screen flickered to life, showing 3 sleek drones racing ahead of the warship, zeroing in on the tiny pod. Years of searching, dozens of conquered worlds, countless resources, all for this moment. 10 seconds to intercept, called out another officer. Vilgax stepped closer to the screen. "No mistakes," he warned. "Anyone who fails me will not survive to regret it." The drones formed a triangular formation around the pod, energy nets charging. Earth loomed large now, a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. 5 seconds, 4. 3. A small alarm sounded. "Sir." Another ship approaching at high velocity. Vilgax whipped around. "Who dares?" "Scanning, it's a plumber vessel." "Designation, Art 17. A deep growl rumbled in Vilgax's chest. "Tennyson." The plumber ship burst into view, weapons already firing. 2 recovery drones exploded instantly. "Fire!" Vilgax roared. "Destroy that ship." The Chimerian hammer unleashed its arsenal, filling space with deadly energy bolts. But the smaller plumber vessel moved with unexpected agility, dancing between the blasts while continuing its attack on the remaining drone. "Sir, the pod is accelerating toward Earth's atmosphere." "Intercept window closing." Vilgax slammed his fist into a console, shattering it. "Prepare my personal transport. Now." Max Tennyson gritted his teeth as he yanked the controls, barely avoiding another barrage from Vilgax's warship. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Even for a veteran plumber, these odds weren't great. "Come on, old girl," he muttered to his ship. "Just need to keep them busy a little longer." His scanner beeped, showing the pod's trajectory straight toward Bellwood. where his grandkids would be arriving tomorrow for summer vacation. Not ideal, Max grunted, firing another volley at the remaining recovery drone. But better than letting Vilgax get it. A massive blast rocked his ship, throwing Max against his restraints. "Warning, hull integrity at 62%, announced the computer's calm voice. "Yeah, I noticed," Max replied, punching in a series of commands. "Time for Plan B." Vilgax bounded into his transport ship, shoving the pilot aside. "Out of my way, incompetent." He took the controls himself, disengaging from the main hangar and blasting toward the pod at maximum speed. Through the viewport, he watched Tennyson's ship engaging his forces, a minor annoyance he'd deal with later. The transport's engines screamed as Vilgax pushed them beyond safety limits. His eyes never left the tiny pod, now glowing hot as it began entering Earth's atmosphere. "After all this time," he growled, "nothing will stop me now." He activated the transport's grappling system, extending a magnetic beam toward the pod. The distance closed. 500 meters. 300 meters. A flash of light caught his peripheral vision. Tennyson's ship had broken off its attack and was now on a collision course with him. "Fool," Vilgax snarled, not changing course. If Tennyson wanted to die, so be it. At the last moment, the plumber ship veered away, but not before launching something directly at Vilgax's transport. The small projectile attached to his hull with a metallic clang. "Sir!" the ship's computer warned. "Explosive device detected." Vilgax ignored it, extending his grappling beam. Almost there. The bomb detonated, ripping through the transport's left engine. The ship lurched violently, systems failing across the board. But the magnetic grapple had already locked onto the pod. Alarms blared as both ships, Vilgax's damaged transport and the Omnitrix pod, tumbled toward Earth, locked together in free fall. Vilgax braced himself as his vessel began breaking apart around him. Fire and twisted metal surrounded him as the ground rushed up to meet them. His last conscious thought was of the prize, so close after all these years. Then darkness. Consciousness returned slowly, painfully. Vilgax's eyes opened to smoke and destruction. His transport lay in ruins around him, embedded in a smoking crater. Warning systems blared their last before failing completely. Pain shot through his body as he pushed debris aside and pulled himself upright. Even with his enhanced physiology, the crash had done significant damage. At least 3 broken ribs. Internal bleeding. His right arm hung useless at his side. None of that mattered. "The pod," he growled, scanning the wreckage. There, a faint green glow beneath twisted metal. Vilgax dragged himself forward, tossing aside hull fragments that would have been impossible for any human to move. The pod had split open in the crash. And there it was. Small, watch-like, seemingly insignificant. The Omnitrix. Vilgax reached for it with his functioning left hand. Years of searching, countless resources expended, dozens of worlds conquered in his relentless pursuit, all for this moment. His clawed fingers closed around the device. Immediately, it responded, mechanical components shifting and reconfiguring. "Yes," Vilgax hissed triumphantly, "recognize your master." The Omnitrix's surface glowed brighter. It extended mechanical tendrils that wrapped around Vilgax's wrist, securing itself. Pain shot through his arm as the device integrated with his biology, but Vilgax merely smiled. Pain was temporary. Power was forever. A holographic interface appeared above the Omnitrix, displaying silhouettes of various alien species. So many forms, so many powers, all his to command. In the distance, sirens wailed. Earth authorities, no doubt coming to investigate the crash. They would be his first test subjects. Vilgax scrolled through the available transformations, assessing their capabilities. His eyes settled on one particularly powerful-looking silhouette. "This will do nicely," he growled, pressing down on the interface. Green light engulfed him, restructuring his DNA at the molecular level. The sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced, simultaneously agonizing and exhilarating as his body reconfigured into something new. When the light faded, Vilgax looked down at himself. His body had transformed into a massive, crystalline being. Sharp, diamond-hard edges replaced tentacles. Incredible strength flowed through him, and he could sense new abilities waiting to be unleashed. "Interesting," he said, his voice now resonating with metallic overtones. The first police vehicles appeared at the crater's edge, officers emerging with weapons drawn. "Freeze," one shouted. "Don't move." Vilgax, in his new Petrosapian form, merely laughed. He raised his arm, instinctively knowing how to use this body's abilities. Crystal shards shot from his limb, shredding the police cars like paper. The officers opened fire, bullets pinging harmlessly off his crystalline body. "Pathetic," Vilgax growled, striding forward. With each step, his confidence in this new form grew. He could feel the raw power coursing through him. More crystal projectiles flew from his hands, forcing the officers to retreat. One brave soul tried to flank him, but Vilgax simply morphed his arm into a blade and sliced the human's weapon in half. "Your planet will soon understand true power," Vilgax announced as the remaining officers fled. "This is merely the beginning." A rumbling in the sky drew his attention upward. His warship, the Chimerian Hammer, descended through the clouds, having tracked the Omnitrix's signal. "Right on schedule." Vilgax touched the symbol on his chest, instinctively knowing it would return him to his original form. Green light flashed again, and he was back in his own body, but completely healed. The broken bones, the internal injuries, even his damaged arm, all repaired. A side effect of the transformation process, he realized. Useful. As his ship landed nearby, Vilgax looked at the Omnitrix with newfound appreciation. This was no mere weapon. This was evolution itself, bound to his wrist. The universe would never be the same. News of the alien crash spread quickly across Earth's media channels. Amateur footage showed glimpses of a crystalline monster attacking police before a massive ship descended and retrieved it. In a secluded RV park just outside Bellwood, Max Tennyson watched these reports with growing dread. His worst fears confirmed, he reached for a device hidden beneath his dashboard, one he'd hoped never to use again. "This is Max Tennyson, plumber badge Alpha 70, calling emergency protocol," he spoke into the communicator. "Vilgax has the Omnitrix." "Repeat, Vilgax has the Omnitrix." After receiving acknowledgement, Max leaned back, his weathered face grim. He glanced at the calendar where he'd circled tomorrow's date, when Ben and Gwen were supposed to arrive for their summer trip. "Sorry, kids," he murmured, "vacation's cancelled." Aboard the Chimerian Hammer, Vilgax sat in his regeneration chamber, studying the Omnitrix. His scientists and engineers hovered nervously nearby, awaiting orders. "Analysis complete, my lord," one finally reported. "The device contains DNA samples from 10,000 different species across the galaxy, allowing instantaneous transformation into any of them." "And the limitations?" Vilgax demanded. "There appears to be a recharge period after each use. Approximately 10 Earth minutes. Also, the transformation duration seems capped at around 20 minutes, though we're still gathering data." Vilgax nodded. "Manageable constraints. What of its origins?" The scientist hesitated. "All evidence points to Galvan technology, specifically the work of first thinker Azimuth." "Azimuth," Vilgax repeated, the name tasting bitter on his tongue. The Galvan had repeatedly refused to build weapons for his conquests. And all the while, he'd been creating this marvel of technology. "Set course for the Andromeda Galaxy," Vilgax ordered. "Specifically, the Scalpask system." His second-in-command looked up in surprise. "My lord? That system has no strategic value." "It has exactly the value I say it has," Vilgax replied coldly. "It's isolated, sparsely populated, and perfect for what I need, practice. He turned the Omnitrix, studying the alien silhouettes it displayed. Each represented power, versatility, new ways to conquer. I will master every form before confronting the galactic enforcers, he continued. When they come, and they will, I'll be ready. The Skalpask system wasn't much to look at, 3 planets orbiting a dying star. The largest planet, Skalpask Prime, supported a simple civilization, reptilian humanoids who had barely achieved spaceflight. Perfect for Vilgax's purposes. His ship entered orbit without resistance, its massive shadow falling across the planet's main city like an omen. On the bridge, Vilgax surveyed the primitive civilization through the main viewport. Begin the invasion protocol. I want their defensive capabilities assessed. Drones launched from the Chimerian hammer, descending toward the planet's surface. Meanwhile, Vilgax activated the Omnitrix again, scrolling through its options. This time, he muttered, something with speed. He selected a form and pressed down. Green light enveloped him once more. When it faded, Vilgax found himself transformed into a blue, velociraptor-like being. His mind instantly recognized the species, a Kinoceleran. One of the fastest beings in the galaxy. Prepare my transport, he ordered, his voice now a raspy hiss. I will lead this attack personally. The citizens of Skalpask Prime had never seen anything like the Chimerian hammer. Their primitive defense forces scrambled jets and ground vehicles, weapons at the ready as Vilgax's transport descended. They never stood a chance. Vilgax burst from his ship as a blue blur, moving faster than their eyes could track. Their weapons fired too slowly, their movements painfully sluggish to his enhanced perception. He tore through their ranks like a whirlwind, dismantling vehicles, disarming soldiers, and creating chaos. Each movement taught him more about this form's capabilities, the incredible acceleration, the reflexes, the way friction seemed almost meaningless. Within minutes, their main defensive line collapsed. Vilgax skidded to a halt before their command center, enjoying the look of terror on the reptilian faces staring back at him. Your planet now belongs to Vilgax, he announced. Resistance is, the Omnitrix symbol on his chest suddenly began beeping, flashing red instead of green. Vilgax felt the energy shifting within him. Not yet, he growled, but the device ignored him. Red light flashed, and he reverted to his original form right before the stunned Skalpatians. There was a moment of shocked silence as they recognized the infamous warlord standing before them. Then they opened fire. Energy blasts struck Vilgax from all sides. Ordinarily, he would have shrugged them off with minimal damage, but he'd been counting on the Kinoceleran speed for this phase of the attack. Annoyed, Vilgax charged forward, relying on his natural strength. He ripped a massive gun emplacement from its mount and hurled it through the command center's wall, creating an entrance. His drones poured in behind him, securing the facility as Vilgax grabbed the Skalpatian leader by the throat. As I was saying, Vilgax continued calmly, your planet now belongs to me. Your resources, your people, your technology, all mine to use as I see fit. The leader's scales paled. We are a peaceful system. We have no quarrel with you. Quarrel? Vilgax laughed. This isn't about quarrels. This is about power. Mine, specifically. He raised the Omnitrix. And I require your planet to perfect my use of this device. He tossed the leader aside like garbage. Establish a perimeter, he ordered his drones. I want training facilities constructed immediately. And prepare the citizens for processing. As his forces moved to comply, Vilgax studied the Omnitrix again. The recharge time was inconvenient but manageable. He simply needed to plan his transformation strategically. Already, ideas formed in his mind. Each alien form had specific strengths. Mastering them all would make him unstoppable. The conquest of Skalpask Prime was complete within hours. Its people subjugated, its resources seized, its very purpose redefined, all to serve Vilgax's goal of mastering the Omnitrix. And it was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Vilgax turned Scalpask Prime into his personal training ground. Each day, he tested new transformations, pushed their limits, and developed fighting techniques specific to each form. The crystalline Petrosapien excelled at both offense and defense. The speedy Kineceleran could end fights before they began. A burning, magma-based form, which he learned was called a Pyronite, proved devastatingly effective against groups. But one transformation stood above the rest, a massive, four-armed behemoth with incredible strength and durability. Vilgax found himself returning to this Tetraman form repeatedly, relishing its raw power. He stood in this form now, red skin glistening with sweat as he faced off against a dozen combat drones in his newly constructed training arena. Scalpascian citizens watched from enclosures, forced witnesses to their conqueror's growing power. Vilgax, or Four Arms, as he'd begun calling this transformation, charged into the drones without hesitation. Each of his four fists could shatter steel, and he used them with brutal efficiency. One drone's head caved in beneath a hammer blow. Another was ripped in half, its circuit sparking uselessly. A third fired energy blasts that Four Arms simply absorbed before leaping forward to crush it beneath his massive foot. Within minutes, the arena floor was littered with mechanical wreckage. Four Arms stood triumphant, barely winded. Insufficient challenge, he growled to his attendants. Increase difficulty by 50% next time. The Omnitrix timed out, returning him to his Chimerian form. Vilgax strode from the arena, ignoring the fearful eyes of the Scalpascians. In his private chambers, he reviewed data collected during his training. Each transformation was extensively documented: strengths, weaknesses, energy consumption rates, tactical applications. Vilgax was nothing if not methodical. "My lord," his second-in-command interrupted, entering after a respectful knock. "We've received a transmission. The Galactic Enforcers have noticed our presence in this system." Vilgax smiled. "Right on schedule. How long until they arrive?" 3 solar cycles, based on their current trajectory." "Perfect." Vilgax turned to a star map displaying nearby systems. "We've extracted what value we could from this pathetic world. Prepare the ship for departure." "And the Scalpascians, sir?" Vilgax waved dismissively. "No further use to me. Sterilize the planet." The officer hesitated just long enough for Vilgax to notice. "Is there a problem with my order?" "No, my lord," the officer replied quickly. "It will be done." As his subordinate left, Vilgax returned to studying his collected data. The Omnitrix was proving even more valuable than anticipated. Not just a weapon, but an entire arsenal in one device. Yet something nagged at him, a question about the Omnitrix's true purpose. Why would Azimuth, known for his reluctance to build weapons, create something with such obvious military applications? There had to be more to it. And Vilgax intended to find out what. Max Tennyson stood before the Plumber High Command, his weathered face grim as he delivered his report. The holographic faces of various alien leaders watched with increasing alarm. "Vilgax has completely destroyed the Scalpask system," Max continued. "Billions dead. And according to our intelligence, he's heading toward the KYLMYYS sector next." A Petrosapien commander spoke up. "With the Omnitrix, he can utilize the natural abilities of any species, including our own. This makes traditional defenses nearly useless." "We need to contact Azimuth," suggested an elderly Galvan. "As the creator, he may know of weaknesses we can exploit." Max shook his head. "We've tried. Azimuth has gone into hiding." "Typical." He couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. "But we can't wait for him to decide this is his problem. Vilgax is growing stronger with each world he conquers." "What do you propose, Tennyson?" asked the High Magistrate, leaning forward. Max pulled up a tactical display. "A direct assault is suicide. But I've fought Vilgax longer than anyone. I know how he thinks. He's methodical, testing each form's capabilities before moving to populated worlds. This gives us a small window to develop countermeasures. He highlighted several star systems. I recommend establishing strike teams here, here, and here. Small, elite units that can hit and run. We can't beat him head-on, but we can slow him down, gather intelligence on the Omnitrix's limitations. The High Command exchanged glances. Very well, the magistrate finally said. You will lead the primary strike team, Tennyson. Choose your personnel carefully. Max nodded grimly. I already have. On the frozen world of KYLMYYS, Vilgax emerged from his ship in a new form, a moth-like alien wrapped in a flame-colored cloak. Frigid winds that would have killed most species merely felt refreshing to this necrophrygian body. His forces deployed behind him, establishing a base camp in the icy wastes. This world had no sentient population, just primitive predators and vast resources of valuable minerals. Perfect conditions to test this form's limits, Vilgax said, his breath visible in the sub-zero air. He concentrated, and his body became intangible, passing through a nearby ice wall with ease. Another thought, and freezing vapor expelled from his mouth, turning a rock formation into solid ice. Flight, intangibility, ice generation, this form's versatility impressed even Vilgax. Sir, called one of his officers through the communicator. Scans detect movement approximately 3 kilometers north. Appears to be a large predator species. Vilgax smiled beneath his alien features. Excellent. I'll handle this personally. He launched into the air, wings spreading wide as he soared over the icy landscape. The sensation of flight, true flight, not the artificial kind provided by technology, was exhilarating. Soon, he spotted his target, a massive, white-furred beast with multiple limbs and gleaming fangs. A perfect test subject. Vilgax swooped down, deliberately making enough noise to attract the creature's attention. It roared, rearing up to its full height of nearly 7 meters. The beast charged, surprisingly fast for its size. Vilgax waited until the last moment before turning intangible, allowing the creature to pass harmlessly through him. Confused, the predator spun around, searching for its vanished prey. Vilgax reappeared behind it, blasting its hindquarters with freezing breath. Ice formed instantly, immobilizing the creature's back legs. It roared in fury, twisting to snap at him with enormous jaws. Vilgax simply went intangible again, floating through the attack before solidifying to deliver a powerful strike to the beast's head. The battle continued for several minutes, with Vilgax testing different combat applications of this form's abilities. The predator fought valiantly but never stood a chance. Finally, with the creature exhausted and partially frozen, Vilgax hovered before its face. Your world belongs to me now, he told the beast, knowing it couldn't understand. As does everything in it. He delivered a final blast of freezing vapor directly into the predator's face, encasing its head in solid ice. The massive body collapsed, life extinguished. Vilgax landed beside his kill, satisfied with the test. This necrophrygian form, Big Chill, he dubbed it, would be invaluable for infiltration and surprise attacks. As he prepared to return to base, a flash of movement caught his eye. Something metallic, reflecting the pale sunlight from behind a distant ridge. Computer, he spoke into his communicator, scan Sector 7, Northern Quadrant. A moment passed before the response came. Scan complete. Nothing detected, sir. Vilgax narrowed his eyes. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest began beeping, indicating an imminent timeout. With one last suspicious glance toward the ridge, he launched into the air, returning to base as his transformation reverted. Behind the ice ridge, Max Tennyson lowered his high-powered scanner, breathing a sigh of relief. The plumber cloaking technology had worked, barely. This is Tennyson, he whispered into his communicator. Target is developing new tactics with each transformation. The device appears to time out after approximately 20 minutes of use, forcing him back to his original form. Any weaknesses? Came the response from his orbital backup. Max frowned. Nothing significant yet. But he's growing overconfident. That might be our opening. He glanced at the scanner readings he'd managed to collect. The Omnitrix's energy signature was unique, unlike anything he'd seen before. Continue surveillance, ordered his superior. And Tennyson, be careful. We can't afford to lose you. Max packed up his equipment, moving silently through the frozen terrain. Don't worry about me, he muttered. Worry about what happens if we don't stop him. Weeks turned into months as Vilgax continued his systematic conquest, testing each Omnitrix form in different environments against various opponents. With each victory, his mastery grew, as did his ambition. No longer content with isolated worlds, he turned his attention to populated systems with strategic value. The Chimerian hammer, once a formidable warship, was now just one vessel in a growing armada as conquered worlds were forced to contribute to his fleet. Vilgax stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying tactical displays of his next target, the Petropia system. Home to a race of crystalline beings similar to one of his favorite transformations. Their defenses, he asked his tactical officer. Substantial, my lord. The Petrosapiens have reinforced their orbital platforms since receiving warning of our approach. Their crystalline technology is among the most durable in the galaxy. Vilgax smiled coldly. Yet they cannot anticipate what I've become. He activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through options before selecting a small, gray alien form. The transformation washed over him, reshaping his massive body into a diminutive, frog-like being with large, bulbous eyes. This will be amusing, he said, his voice now high-pitched and nasal. His officers stared in confusion. This form appeared physically weak compared to his usual choices. Sir, ventured his second-in-command. This form doesn't seem combat-oriented. The small gray alien that was Vilgax smiled, tapping his oversized head. Not all battles are won with strength, Commander. The Galvan may be physically unimpressive, but their intellect is unmatched. And now, that intellect is mine. He hopped onto a console, tiny fingers flying over the controls with blinding speed. His enhanced Galvan brain processed information thousands of times faster than normal, seeing patterns and possibilities invisible to others. The Petrosapiens believe their crystalline defense grid is impenetrable, he explained, reworking the ship's weapon systems as he spoke. But all crystals have resonance frequencies. Find the right frequency. He completed his modifications and looked up with a smug expression. And they shatter. The tactical officer watched in amazement as new targeting solutions appeared on his screen. This will work. Their entire defense grid has a fundamental vulnerability we never detected. Of course it will work, Vilgax replied impatiently. Now, prepare the fleet. We attack at these coordinates precisely when their planet reaches this position in its orbit. As the crew rushed to comply, Vilgax continued his work, enhancing ship systems and developing new weapons with his temporarily enhanced intellect. The Galvan form, which he called gray matter, might lack physical power, but its strategic value was immeasurable. When the Omnitrix timed out, returning him to his original form, Vilgax had accomplished more in 20 minutes than his entire engineering corps could in months. Impressive, he murmured, looking at the device on his wrist with newfound appreciation. Each alien form offered unique advantages, but perhaps this one, with its intellectual rather than physical capabilities, would prove most valuable of all. The battle for Petropia lasted less than a day. Despite their advanced defenses and warrior culture, the Petrosapiens found themselves outmatched when their planetary shield collapsed in the opening minutes of the conflict. Vilgax's fleet struck with precision, targeting exactly the vulnerabilities gray matter had identified. Now, Vilgax stood in the crystalline throne room of Petropia's capital city, having claimed it as his forward command center. His forces secured the planet while resistance fighters were systematically hunted down. A prisoner was brought before him, Tetrax Shard, one of Petropia's most renowned warriors. The infamous Tetrax, Vilgax said, circling the captive. Your reputation precedes you. Tetrax remained silent, his crystalline features impossible to read. Nothing to say. Vilgax continued. No pleas for your people. No defiant proclamations. Words mean nothing to conquerors, Tetrax finally replied. And I don't beg. Vilgax laughed. Good. Begging is beneath a warrior of your caliber. He stopped directly in front of the Petrosapian. I have a proposition for you. Tetrax's eyes narrowed. I won't serve you. You misunderstand, Vilgax replied, activating the Omnitrix. I don't need your service. I need your expertise. Green light flashed, and Vilgax transformed into his Petrosapian form, matching Tetrax's crystalline appearance. You see, Vilgax continued, his voice now resonating with the metallic quality characteristic of the species, I've mastered the basic capabilities of this form. But I know there are techniques, subtleties that only a native Petrosapian would understand. He formed his arm into a blade, a basic Petrosapian ability. Teach me everything this form can do. Every combat technique, every cultural insight, every hidden capability. And why would I betray my people like that? Tetrax demanded. Vilgax reverted the blade back to a hand. Because for each skill you teach me, I will spare 1,000 of your people from the processing camps. Consider it, a cultural exchange. Tetrax's expression hardened. You're a monster. I'm a conqueror, Vilgax corrected. And now, I'm also one of you. He gestured to his crystalline body. The choice is simple. Help me perfect this form, or watch your people suffer unnecessarily. Conflict raged behind Tetrax's eyes. Finally, his shoulders slumped slightly. You'll spare them? I have your word. My word is absolute, Vilgax replied. Those I spare will be relocated to colony worlds, not harmed. After a long moment, Tetrax nodded once. Then I'll teach you. But understand this, I do this for my people, not for you. And someday, somehow, you'll pay for what you've done here. Vilgax merely smiled, his crystalline features catching the light. Spirited. I like that. We begin immediately. Over the following days, Tetrax reluctantly instructed Vilgax in advanced Petrosapian techniques. The ability to create complex crystal structures, to refract energy attacks, to sense vibrations through crystalline surfaces, all knowledge Vilgax absorbed eagerly. During one training session, as Vilgax practiced forming complex crystalline weapons, Tetrax watched with barely concealed disgust. You learn quickly, the Petrosapian admitted. But you miss the essence of what these abilities mean to us. Vilgax paused, crystal mace half-formed from his hand. Explain. Our abilities aren't just weapons, Tetrax said. They're expressions of who we are. When we create, he demonstrated by forming an intricate crystal flower, we're connecting to thousands of years of cultural heritage. Vilgax studied the flower with scientific interest rather than appreciation. Cultural sentiment has no tactical value. That's where you're wrong, Tetrax countered. Understanding a species, truly understanding them, not just wearing their form, gives insight into how they think, how they fight, how they perceive threats. True mastery comes from comprehension, not mimicry. Vilgax considered this, his crystalline brow furrowed. For the first time, a doubt crept into his mind about his approach to the Omnitrix. Was he truly mastering these forms, or merely exploiting their most obvious capabilities? The thought irritated him. Enough philosophy. Show me the crystal resonance technique you mentioned. Tetrax demonstrated, creating a specific frequency that caused nearby crystals to vibrate in harmony. This allows communication over great distances, through crystal conduits. Vilgax replicated the technique perfectly, but his mind remained troubled by Tetrax's words. The Omnitrix timed out shortly after, returning him to his original form. "We'll continue tomorrow," he said abruptly, leaving Tetrax under guard. In his private chambers, Vilgax studied the Omnitrix with new scrutiny. Each transformation gave him the physical attributes and instinctive abilities of the species, but was he missing deeper knowledge? Subtle applications that only came from lived experience. "Computer," he commanded, "compile all available data on Omnitrix creator Azimuth. Focus on philosophical writings and stated purpose for his creations." The computer processed for several moments before responding. Limited information available. Azimuth of Galvan Prime, known as First Thinker. Inventor of numerous advanced technologies. Became reclusive after an unspecified incident involving one of his inventions being misused for warfare. Vilgax frowned. Misused for warfare? What was the device's intended purpose? Unknown. Azimuth rarely publicizes the purpose of his inventions. Vilgax stared at the Omnitrix, its green light pulsing softly. A tool of peace misused for war. Or a weapon disguised as something more noble. Either way, it served his purposes. Yet Tetrax's words lingered uncomfortably in his mind. Months passed as Vilgax's empire expanded relentlessly. World after world fell before his growing fleet, each conquest adding to his resources and knowledge. The Omnitrix proved its value countless times, each transformation deployed strategically to overcome specific defenses. Yet resistance grew. The plumbers, once scattered and disorganized, had adapted to his tactics. Supply lines were ambushed. Conquered worlds staged uprisings. Intelligence leaks became increasingly common. Vilgax knew who was behind it. "Tennyson," he growled, studying reports of another sabotaged operation. Always Tennyson. His spies had confirmed Max Tennyson was coordinating the resistance efforts, using his extensive knowledge of Vilgax's methods to anticipate movements and exploit weaknesses. "Find him," Vilgax ordered his intelligence chief. "I want Tennyson captured alive." The officer nodded nervously. "We're trying, my lord. But he's elusive. And he has help." Vilgax's eyes narrowed. "What kind of help?" "Reports mention 2 young humans with him. Children, by their species standards. But they possess unusual abilities. One appears to manipulate energy fields. The other demonstrates remarkable combat proficiency despite his size." "Children?" Vilgax scoffed. "Tennyson is using child soldiers now. How desperate he must be." Yet something about this information nagged at him. Why would Tennyson endanger children? Unless. "Show me any visual data we have on these humans," Vilgax demanded. The intelligence chief brought up several blurry surveillance images. 2 small humans, 1 male, 1 female, captured at various resistance operations. Vilgax studied them carefully. The boy. There's something familiar about him. He activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through its interface to access data files he'd previously ignored. The device contained information about each species it cataloged, including humans. The file included genetic markers for optimal human compatibility. Vilgax compared these markers to the surveillance images, his suspicion growing. The boy was the intended recipient, he realized suddenly. The Omnitrix was programmed to seek him out specifically. It made sense now. The pod's trajectory toward Earth. Tennyson's desperate attempt to intercept it. The boy's apparent combat skills despite his youth. Vilgax smiled coldly. So, Tennyson is training his grandson to take what he believes should be his. He closed the files with a decisive gesture. How poetic that I shall use the very device to destroy them both. Deep in an abandoned plumber base on Earth's moon, Max Tennyson reviewed tactical data with his grandchildren. At 10 years old, Ben and Gwen Tennyson had been thrust into a conflict far beyond normal human experience. Yet they'd adapted with remarkable resilience. Vilgax's forces are concentrated here, Max explained, pointing to a holographic display. He's establishing a forward base in the Andromeda Galaxy, likely preparing for a push toward the Milky Way. Ben fidgeted impatiently. We should just hit him directly. Take the Omnitrix back before he figures out how to use all the aliens. That's suicide, Gwen countered, rolling her eyes. He's mastered at least 15 different forms already. We need to be smarter than that. Max nodded at his granddaughter. Gwen's right. Direct confrontation isn't an option yet. We need to keep gathering intelligence, disrupting his supply lines, and building our alliance. Ben kicked at the floor in frustration. It's just. That thing was supposed to come to me. I was supposed to be the hero, not him. Max placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. Being a hero isn't about having the most powerful device, Ben. It's about making the right choices with whatever abilities you have. He glanced meaningfully at Gwen, whose emerging magical abilities had proven invaluable, and back to Ben, whose intensive combat training had transformed him from an ordinary kid into a formidable fighter despite his age. Besides, Max continued, we have an advantage Vilgax doesn't. We understand what the Omnitrix was really made for. Gwen looked up. You still haven't told us everything, Grandpa. How do you know so much about it? Max sighed. Because I helped Azimuth hide it after it was completed. The Omnitrix wasn't designed as a weapon. It was created to foster understanding between different species, literally walking in another being's shoes. Azimuth believed that most conflict stems from inability to comprehend another's perspective. Ben's eyes widened. So it's like an empathy machine? In a way, Max nodded. Which is why Vilgax's use of it is so perverse. He sees only the combat applications, not the deeper purpose. An alarm suddenly blared throughout the base. Red emergency lights bathed the room. Proximity alert. Max rushed to the console. Multiple ships entering lunar orbit. It's Vilgax's fleet. Gwen's hands began glowing with magical energy. How did they find us? Doesn't matter, Max replied grimly, activating defense systems. Ben, Gwen, get to the escape pods. I'll hold them off. No way. Ben protested. We fight together. The base shook as the first bombardment hit. Dust rained from the ceiling. Max grabbed both children by the shoulders. Listen to me. You two are more important than you know. If Vilgax captures you, especially you, Ben, it could be catastrophic. Why me? Ben demanded. Another explosion rocked the base, closer this time. No time to explain, Max said, pushing them toward the escape corridor. The pods are programmed for the backup rendezvous point. The other plumbers will meet you there. But what about you? Gwen asked, tears in her eyes. Max pulled out his old plumber weapon, checking its charge. I'll be right behind you. Now go. The children reluctantly raced down the corridor as Max sealed the door behind them. He turned to face the main entrance, weapon raised. Come on, Vilgax, he muttered. Let's finish what we started. The base's main door exploded inward in a shower of metal and concrete. Through the smoke strode a massive, four-armed red alien, Vilgax in his Tetraman form. Tennyson, he bellowed, scanning the room. Face me. Max fired his weapon, the energy blast striking Vilgax squarely in the chest. The Tetraman barely flinched. Is that the best you can offer? Vilgax laughed, advancing steadily. After all these months of running, hiding, sabotaging my operations from the shadows? Max continued firing, backing toward a secondary control panel. Just giving you my full attention, ugly. Vilgax charged, crossing the room in 3 massive strides. Max dove aside at the last moment, the Tetraman's fist smashing the spot where he'd been standing. Rolling to his feet, Max activated his wrist communicator. Plumber override code Tennyson Alpha 7. Base self-destruct sequence, 60 seconds. Self-destruct sequence initiated, confirmed the computer's voice. 59:58. Vilgax's eyes widened momentarily before narrowing in anger. You would sacrifice yourself? For what purpose? Your resistance is broken, your forces scattered. Maybe, Max admitted, keeping the secondary exit at his back. But as long as there's one person willing to stand against you, you'll never truly win. Vilgax charged again, but this time Max was ready. He triggered a hidden control, dropping an emergency bulkhead between them. It wouldn't hold for long, but he only needed a few seconds. The children, Tennyson. Vilgax called through the barrier. Where are they? Max paused at the emergency exit. Somewhere you'll never find them. He slipped through the door as Vilgax's tetramand fists began pounding through the bulkhead. 20 seconds to self-destruct, announced the computer. Max raced down the evacuation tunnel, heart pounding. Behind him, he heard Vilgax roaring in fury as the barrier finally gave way. 10, 9, 8. The tunnel ended at a small, one-person escape pod. Max jumped inside, slamming the launch control. 3, 2, 1. The pod ejected from the lunar base just as the first explosions tore through the structure. Max watched through the small viewport as the base, his home and headquarters for months, erupted in a massive fireball, momentarily bright as a small star against the lunar surface. Had Vilgax escaped? Probably. The Omnitrix would have given him options: intangibility, invulnerability, or simple speed to outrun the blast. But at least Ben and Gwen were safe. And that was what mattered most. As his pod hurtled toward Earth, Max opened a secure communication channel to the Resistance's new headquarters. This is Tennyson. Base Alpha is compromised. I'm en route to secondary rendezvous. He paused, then added, and we need to contact Azimuth. It's time. Vilgax had indeed escaped the explosion, using his necrophrygian form to phase through the lunar regolith itself. Now, back aboard his flagship in his original form, he raged at his subordinates. How did they escape? Your scanners detected 3 human life signs. The tactical officer swallowed nervously. 2 small escape pods launched before the base exploded, sir. Our forces were focused on your extraction and were unable to intercept. Incompetence. Vilgax slammed his fist into a console, shattering it. I want every ship we have searching. Find those pods. His second-in-command cleared his throat. My lord, if I may, perhaps this presents an opportunity. Vilgax turned, anger momentarily held in check. Explain. Tennyson and the children are separated. Vulnerable. If we monitor plumber communications instead of conducting an obvious search, they may lead us to their new base themselves. Vilgax considered this, his rage cooling into calculated malice. Yes. Tennyson will prioritize reaching the children. His human sentimentality makes him predictable. He activated a holographic display of Earth. Deploy stealth satellites in orbit. Monitor all communications, especially on plumber frequencies. And prepare a special task force, my most loyal soldiers. When we find Tennyson's new base, I will lead the attack personally. The officer nodded. And the rest of our fleet, sir. Vilgax smiled coldly. Continue with our planned conquest of the Milky Way. Tennyson is a significant annoyance, but he's not my only concern. The galaxy still awaits my rule. As his officers rushed to comply, Vilgax studied the Omnitrix thoughtfully. His encounter with Tennyson had been brief but revealing. The old plumber knew something about the device, something important enough that he was willing to sacrifice himself to keep it hidden. Computer, Vilgax commanded, compile all data on human genetic compatibility with the Omnitrix. Focus on why a specific human child might be designated as its intended recipient. The answer might provide an edge, a way to unlock even more power from the device that had already made him nearly invincible. And with that power, not even Tennyson's desperate resistance could stand in his way. In a hidden laboratory deep within the Galvan homeworld, a small, gray alien hunched over a workbench. Azimuth, creator of the Omnitrix, had been in seclusion for months, working tirelessly on a new project. His concentration was broken by a priority communication alert. Few beings in the universe had access to this secure channel. Azimuth, came Max Tennyson's voice, we need to talk. Vilgax is mastering the Omnitrix faster than we anticipated. He's discovered its connection to Ben. The Galvan sighed heavily, setting down his tools. I warned you this might happen, Max. The Omnitrix was programmed to seek compatible DNA, your grandson's specific genetic code provided optimal integration potential. I know that, Max replied impatiently. What I need now is a way to stop Vilgax, not a reminder of past decisions. Do you have something that can neutralize the Omnitrix? Azimuth glanced at the device taking shape on his workbench. I'm working on it. But it's not ready yet. We don't have time for, not ready yet, Max countered. Vilgax is preparing to invade the Milky Way. Billions of lives are at stake. Don't lecture me on stakes, Tennyson, Azimuth snapped. I created the Omnitrix to foster peace and understanding, not to enable conquest. No one feels its misuse more keenly than I do. A moment of tense silence followed. I'm sending you coordinates, Max finally said. Our new base. Bring whatever you have, ready or not. And Azimuth, the children need to know everything. The communication ended, leaving Azimuth staring at the incomplete device before him. It wasn't ready, but perhaps it was ready enough. He picked up his tools and resumed work with renewed urgency. On Earth, in a remote region of the Mojave Desert, Ben and Gwen Tennyson waited anxiously for news of their grandfather. Their escape pods had landed as programmed, and plumber agents had brought them to this fallback location, an old military bunker converted for plumber use. He should have been here by now, Ben said, pacing restlessly. Something's wrong. Gwen sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed in concentration. Her hands glowed faintly with magical energy as she attempted to sense their grandfather's presence. I can feel him, she said finally, opening her eyes. He's alive, Ben. And he's coming. As if on cue, an alert sounded throughout the bunker. A plumber agent rushed into the room where the children waited. We've received communication from Max Tennyson, he reported. His pod was damaged during escape but made planetfall safely. He'll be here within 2 hours. Ben's face lit up with relief. See? Grandpa Max always makes it. The agent nodded, but his expression remained serious. There's more. He's bringing someone with him. Azimuth of Galvan Prime. Gwen's eyes widened. The creator of the Omnitrix is coming here. Why? I don't have those details, the agent replied. But all personnel have been placed on high alert. If Azimuth is personally involved, the situation must be critical. After the agent left, Ben resumed pacing. This is big, Gwen. Really big. Grandpa said Azimuth never gets involved directly. I know, she replied thoughtfully. Which means Vilgax must be doing something with the Omnitrix that even Azimuth didn't anticipate. Ben stopped pacing, his young face suddenly serious. When this all started, I was just mad that I didn't get the Omnitrix. That I didn't get to be the hero. He looked down at his hands. But now. I just want to stop Vilgax before more people get hurt. Gwen stood and placed a hand on her cousin's shoulder. That's what makes you a hero, doofus. Not some alien watch. Ben smiled slightly. Thanks, dweeb. Their moment was interrupted by another alert, this one different, more urgent. Proximity warning, blared the announcement system. Unknown craft approaching. All personnel to battle stations. The children exchanged alarmed glances. Vilgax. Ben whispered. How could he have found us so quickly? Gwen wondered. The bunker shook as something massive impacted nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling as the lights flickered. Come on. Ben grabbed Gwen's hand, pulling her toward the emergency exit their grandfather had shown them upon arrival. We need to get to the safe room. They raced through corridors as plumber agents ran in the opposite direction, weapons ready. The sounds of battle, energy weapons, explosions, shouts, grew louder behind them. They reached the reinforced door of the designated safe room just as another massive impact shook the entire bunker. Ben punched in the access code, and the door slid open. Get inside, he urged Gwen. She stepped through the doorway, then turned back, eyes wide with alarm. Ben, come on. But Ben hesitated, looking back toward the sounds of battle. Grandpa might not know where to find us. You should do what Max taught you, came a deep, familiar voice from the corridor behind them. Both children froze as a massive, squid-faced alien stepped into view. No longer transformed, Vilgax stood before them in his true form, red eyes gleaming with triumph. The famous Tennyson grandchildren, Vilgax said, advancing slowly. At last we meet properly. Ben pushed Gwen further into the safe room. Close the door, he shouted. Lock it. I'm not leaving you, she protested. You have to. Ben insisted, stepping into the corridor to face Vilgax. Tell Grandpa what happened. Gwen hesitated, torn between loyalty and logic. Finally, she slapped the interior control panel. The reinforced door began to close. How touching, Vilgax mocked. Self-sacrifice runs in your family, it seems. Ben took a fighting stance, despite being dwarfed by the alien warlord. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. Vilgax laughed. Brave words from such a small human. But it's not your cousin I'm interested in. He raised his wrist, displaying the Omnitrix. It's you, Ben Tennyson. The boy who was meant to wear this device. Ben's eyes widened in shock. What are you talking about? You don't know. Vilgax seemed genuinely surprised. How interesting. Your grandfather has kept secrets even from you. He stepped closer, towering over the child. This device was programmed to seek you out specifically. Your DNA is uniquely compatible with its function. You were chosen, Ben Tennyson. And I want to know why. Ben backed up slowly as Vilgax advanced. I don't know anything about that. Perhaps not consciously, Vilgax conceded. But the answers are in your genetic code. And I will have them. He lunged forward with surprising speed, grabbing Ben before the boy could react. Ben struggled fiercely, employing the combat techniques Max had taught him, but against Vilgax's alien strength, they were futile. Stop fighting, Vilgax commanded, his grip tightening. If I wanted to harm you, you would already be dead. You are far more valuable to me alive. The sound of approaching plumber agents caught Vilgax's attention. Without releasing Ben, he activated the Omnitrix, transforming into his kineceleran form. In a blue blur, he raced through the bunker, evading resistance and returning to his ship with his captive. As they departed Earth's atmosphere, Vilgax reverted to his original form, ordering his crew to set course for his main fleet. Ben, secured to a restraint chair in the ship's laboratory, glared defiantly at his captor. My grandpa will find me. And when he does, you'll be sorry. Vilgax regarded the boy with genuine curiosity. Such conviction from one so young. Perhaps that's why the Omnitrix chose you. He gestured to his science officer. Begin the genetic analysis. I want to know exactly what makes this human special. As the ship accelerated away from Earth, Vilgax considered his prize. The boy might provide answers about the Omnitrix's true potential, power that Vilgax had only begun to tap. And if Tennyson wanted his grandson back, he would have to come directly to Vilgax. No more hiding. No more guerrilla tactics. A final, decisive confrontation. Vilgax smiled at the thought. After all this time, everything was falling into place. Max Tennyson's damaged escape pod landed near the desert bunker just in time to witness Vilgax's ship departing. Beside him sat Azimuth, the Galvan creator, looking grimmer than Max had ever seen him. "We're too late," Max said quietly, watching the ship disappear into the upper atmosphere. "Perhaps," Azimuth replied. "Or perhaps this was inevitable." They made their way to the bunker, finding it severely damaged from Vilgax's assault. Plumber agents were treating wounded comrades and assessing the destruction. In the midst of the chaos, Max spotted Gwen, her face streaked with tears. "Grandpa," she cried, running to him. "Vilgax took Ben. I couldn't stop it, I was in the safe room, and Ben stayed outside to protect me, and—" "Slow down, Pumpkin," Max said gently, kneeling to her level. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, but Ben, we'll get him back," Max assured her, though his voice lacked conviction. He turned to the small alien beside him. "Gwen, this is Azimuth, creator of the Omnitrix." Gwen wiped her tears, looking down at the Galvan with a mixture of awe and accusation. "Your invention is why all this is happening. Why Vilgax took Ben." Azimuth nodded soberly. "Yes. And that is why I'm here to help make it right." He pulled out a small device, similar to the Omnitrix but with subtle differences. "This is the Ultimatrix. An evolved version of my original creation, with additional safeguards and capabilities. It was meant for Ben when he was older, but circumstances have accelerated my timeline." Max frowned. "You built another one? After what happened with the first?" "The Omnitrix itself is not evil," Azimuth replied sharply. "It's a tool, like any other. Its purpose depends on who wields it." He looked at Gwen. "And while it was calibrated for Ben's DNA, it can be recalibrated for another human with similar genetic markers." Gwen's eyes widened as she realized what he was suggesting. "Me? You want me to use it?" "The choice is yours," Azimuth said. "But time is short. Vilgax has Ben for a reason, to discover why the Omnitrix selected him. Once he has that information, he may unlock capabilities even I cannot predict." Max looked troubled. "Gwen is just a child, Azimuth. Ben wasn't ready for this responsibility, and neither is she." "With respect, Max," Azimuth countered, "neither of them is just a child. Ben's DNA contains markers I've only seen in particularly adaptive species. And Gwen's natural affinity for magic suggests similar potential. The choice is still hers, but do not underestimate her capacity because of her age." Gwen straightened, her expression resolute despite her fear. "If it can help save Ben, I'll do it." Max started to object, but Azimuth interrupted. "The Ultimatrix is not merely a weapon, Max. It's a tool for understanding, for walking in another's shoes. That was always the Omnitrix's true purpose." He turned to Gwen. "And sometimes, understanding your enemy is the first step to defeating them." Gwen nodded, extending her wrist. "Then let's do this." Azimuth handed her the Ultimatrix. As she secured it to her arm, the device hummed to life, scanning her DNA before reconfiguring to fit her smaller wrist perfectly. "The interface is intuitive," Azimuth explained. "But be warned, each transformation affects not just your body, but your mind. You'll gain instinctive knowledge of each form's abilities, but your core personality must remain in control." Gwen studied the device with determination. "I understand." Max looked between them, worry evident in his weathered features. But seeing his granddaughter's resolve, he simply said, "Then we'd better prepare. Vilgax's fleet is heading for the Andromeda Galaxy. If we're going after Ben, we'll need help." He activated his plumber badge, opening a channel to all resistance forces. "This is Max Tennyson. Vilgax has captured my grandson. We're mounting a rescue operation, but we can't do it alone. He paused, looking at Gwen with pride despite his fear for her. We have a new weapon. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to end this once and for all. Aboard Vilgax's flagship, Ben Tennyson sat in a containment cell, watching as his captor studied the results of his genetic analysis. Fascinating, Vilgax murmured, scrolling through the data. Your DNA contains markers unlike any human I've encountered. Adaptability sequences, resilience factors, it's almost as if. He trailed off, lost in thought. As if what? Ben asked, curiosity momentarily overriding fear. Vilgax glanced at him. As if you were engineered to be the perfect Omnitrix wielder. He turned back to the screen. These markers don't occur naturally in your species. Someone has been manipulating human genetics, subtly, over generations. Ben frowned. That's crazy. I'm just a normal kid. No, Vilgax corrected, you are not. And Azimuth knew it. He designed the Omnitrix specifically to seek out these genetic markers, to find you. The warlord stood, approaching Ben's cell. The question is why? What makes you so special that the greatest inventor in 5 galaxies would create his masterpiece for you specifically? Ben shrugged, affecting nonchalance despite his racing heart. Maybe he just thought I'd look good with it. Vilgax's eyes narrowed. Humor. Another human defense mechanism. He activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through forms thoughtfully. Perhaps the answer lies in how the device affects different users. Your genetic compatibility may reveal functions I haven't accessed yet. He selected a transformation and pressed down. Green light engulfed him, reshaping his form into a massive, plant-like alien with a flame-patterned head. A methanosian, Ben identified, unable to hide his interest despite the circumstances. Vilgax looked at him sharply. You recognize this species? How? Ben bit his lip, realizing his mistake. Grandpa Max taught me about different aliens. Your grandfather's knowledge continues to surprise me, Vilgax replied skeptically. He raised his plant-like hands, generating small flames between them. Each form reveals new abilities, new tactical advantages. But I sense there's more, something deeper I haven't accessed. The ship suddenly shuddered, alarms blaring throughout the vessel. My lord, called an officer over the intercom. We're under attack. Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace. Vilgax extinguished the flames, moving to a console. Display tactical. A holographic projection appeared, showing a dozen ships surrounding his flagship. At their center was a familiar plumber vessel. Tennyson, Vilgax growled. Sooner than expected. He glanced at Ben. Your grandfather is persistent, I'll grant him that. Ben smiled for the first time since his capture. Told you he'd come. Vilgax activated his ship's external communication system. Attention, Max Tennyson. You are outgunned and outmatched. Surrender now, and I may spare your life. After a moment, Max's voice replied, I have a counteroffer, Vilgax. Return my grandson, and I'll make your defeat quick and painless. Vilgax laughed. Bold words from a desperate old man. What could you possibly? His taunt was cut short by a massive impact that rocked the entire ship. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Direct hit to our main weapons array, reported a crewman. Unknown energy signature. Another blast struck, more powerful than the first. Shields failing, cried the tactical officer. Sir, these readings, it's impossible. Vilgax studied the incoming data, his expression shifting from anger to confusion. This energy pattern, it's similar to the Omnitrix. He turned to the main viewport just in time to see a streak of purple energy approaching his ship. Not from Tennyson's vessel, but from something much smaller. The blast hit with devastating force, breaching the hull and sending crew members flying. Emergency force fields activated, preventing decompression, but damage reports flooded in from all sections. Through the breach floated a figure that made even Vilgax pause. A humanoid alien composed of purple energy, stars and galaxies visible within its body. Where a phase should be, cosmic patterns swirled in unfathomable complexity. "An Celestialcipian," Vilgax whispered, genuine awe in his voice. "Impossible." The cosmic being raised its hand, and reality itself seemed to bend. Vilgax's restraints around Ben simply ceased to exist, the metal atomizing into nothing. "Ben Tennyson," spoke the being, its voice echoing with multiple overlapping tones. "Are you harmed?" Ben stared in amazement. No. "Who are you?" The cosmic entity drifted closer. "I am many voices speaking as one. But you know me." Green light flashed, and where the Celestialcipian had floated now stood Gwen, the Ultimatrix gleaming on her wrist. "Gwen." Ben gasped. "Hi, doofus," she replied with a small smile. "Ready to go home?" Vilgax roared in fury, abandoning his Methanosian form to transform into his favored Tetramand. For massive arms rippling with muscle, he charged at the children. "The Ultimatrix," he snarled. "Asmatha's failsafe." Gwen reactivated her device, transforming into a blue, velociraptor-like alien. In a blur of motion, she grabbed Ben and evaded Vilgax's attack, depositing her cousin safely behind a console. "Stay here," she instructed, her voice now raspy and accelerated. "I'll keep him busy until Grandpa can extract us." But, Ben started to object. "For once in your life, just listen." Gwen cut him off before zooming away, circling Vilgax at speeds that left him swinging at empty air. Vilgax growled in frustration. "Two can play that game, child." He activated the Omnitrix again, matching Gwen's kinoceleran form. Suddenly, the fight evened as two blue streaks clashed throughout the bridge, moving faster than human eyes could track. Ben watched helplessly as consoles exploded and crew members fled. The two speedsters were evenly matched, neither gaining advantage. Until Vilgax changed tactics. Mid-dash, he transformed again, this time into a ghostly, phantom-like alien. Gwen's momentum carried her straight through his now intangible form, sending her crashing into a bulkhead. "Predictable," Vilgax taunted, his voice echoing eerily in this ectoneurite form. "You may have Asmatha's new toy, but I have experience you can't match." Gwen struggled to her feet, the Ultimatrix symbol on her chest blinking yellow. "Maybe," she admitted. "But I have something you don't." "And what's that?" Vilgax asked, drifting closer. Gwen smiled. "Family." At that moment, Ben launched himself from behind, having silently maneuvered around the bridge during their fight. He slammed into Vilgax with a flying kick that, while harmless against the intangible alien, disrupted his concentration just enough. In that split second, Gwen transformed again, into a crystalline Petrosapian. Her arm morphed into a blade that she swept through the space where Vilgax floated. "Crystals disrupt an ectoneurite's intangibility field," she explained as Vilgax suddenly solidified, caught by her blade. "Grandpa taught us that." Vilgax snarled, transforming back to his Tetramand form and grabbing Gwen with all four arms. He hurled her across the bridge with devastating force. "Gwen!" Ben shouted as his cousin crashed into the far wall, the impact so severe that the Ultimatrix timed out, returning her to human form. Vilgax advanced on her crumpled form. Impressive for a novice. But this ends now. Before he could reach her, the ship rocked with another explosion, this one internal. Emergency lights flashed as a new alarm sounded. "Self-destruct sequence initiated," announced the ship's computer. 5 minutes to core detonation. Vilgax whirled around to see Ben standing at the main console, hands still on the emergency override he just activated. "You fool!" Vilgax roared. "You'll kill us all." Ben stood his ground, though fear showed clearly on his young face. "Maybe. But you won't conquer anything if you're dead." A rumbling laugh filled the bridge as a small gray figure hopped onto a nearby console. "Well said, young Tennyson," remarked Azimuth. "Perhaps you were the right choice after all." Vilgax's eyes widened. "Azimuth! You dare board my vessel?" "Your vessel?" The Galvan raised an eyebrow. "This technology is based on my designs, which you and others have corrupted for warfare. I dare a great many things when my creations are misused." He hopped down, approaching Vilgax without apparent fear despite the massive size difference. "The Omnitrix was never meant for conquest, Vilgax. It was meant to create understanding, to allow beings to experience life as others do. To build empathy across species." Vilgax scoffed. "A weapon this powerful, designed for mere cultural exchange? I don't believe you." "That is precisely why you were never worthy to wield it," Azimuth replied simply. "But I wonder, has it changed you, despite your intentions? After months of experiencing other forms, other minds, other ways of being, are you still the same Vilgax who began this journey?" For a moment, something like doubt flickered in Vilgax's red eyes. The transformations had affected him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Each alien form brought not just abilities but instincts, perspectives, subtle shifts in thinking. "For minutes to core detonation," reminded the computer. "Enough philosophy," Vilgax snapped, reaching for Azimuth. "Deactivate the self-destruct," or, his threat was interrupted as a section of the bridge wall exploded inward. Through the smoke stepped Max Tennyson, wearing battle-scarred plumber armor and carrying a weapon almost as large as himself. "Or what?" Max challenged. "You'll add one more atrocity to your list." He leveled the massive gun at Vilgax. "Step away from my family." Vilgax hesitated, assessing the situation. His ship was failing around him, his crew evacuating, and he faced not just Tennyson but Azimuth himself. And the children, both of whom had shown surprising resilience. "This isn't over," he growled, activating the Omnitrix once more. Green light flashed, and Vilgax transformed into his necrophrygian form. With a blast of freezing vapor that forced his opponents to shield themselves, he turned intangible and flew through the hull of his dying ship. Max rushed to Gwen, helping her to her feet. "Are you okay, Pumpkin?" She nodded weakly. Ben activated the self-destruct. "I noticed," Max replied with a grim smile. "Bold move, but now we've got about 3 minutes to get off this ship." Ben joined them, looking at Azimuth with awe. "You're really the creator of the Omnitrix?" Questions later, the Galvan replied tersely. "Escaping now." Max led them through the corridors toward the hangar where his ship was docked. Along the way, they encountered no resistance. Vilgax's crew had apparently abandoned ship. As they boarded Max's vessel and detached from the dying flagship, Ben looked back through the viewport. "Will this stop him?" Azimuth shook his head. "Unlikely. Vilgax is nothing if not resilient. But it may force him to reconsider his approach." The Galvan studied both children with newfound interest. "You've both shown remarkable courage. Perhaps there's hope yet." Max piloted the ship away from Vilgax's flagship, accelerating to safe distance just as the core detonation began. The massive vessel erupted in a series of explosions, sending debris in all directions. "What happens now?" Gwen asked, still wearing the Ultimatrix. Max exchanged glances with Azimuth before answering. "Now, we prepare. Vilgax will return, possibly stronger than before. And when he does..." He looked at his grandchildren with a mixture of pride and concern. "We'll be ready." Drifting in the cold vacuum of space, Vilgax watched his flagship disintegrate from a safe distance. In his necrophrygian form, he required no oxygen, no warmth, no protection from the void. The destruction of his ship was a setback, certainly. But temporary. His empire remained intact, his forces still deployed across multiple systems. More significantly, he had gained crucial information about the Omnitrix, and about Azimuth's new creation. The Ultimatrix represented an evolution of the original design, potentially with capabilities the Omnitrix lacked. And the Tennyson children. Their involvement was no coincidence. The boy's unique genetic markers, the girl's aptitude with the Ultimatrix despite minimal training, Azimuth had been planning this for generations. As Vilgax drifted, allowing his necrophrygian form's wings to carry him on solar winds toward a nearby moon where his forces would retrieve him, he reflected on Azimuth's words. Had the Omnitrix changed him? He had experienced existence as dozens of different species now. Felt the Petrosapiens' crystalline resilience, the Kinesillaran's freedom of movement, the Galvan's intellectual clarity. Each form brought not just abilities but perspectives, new ways of perceiving reality. Vilgax had begun this journey seeking power, the power to conquer, to dominate, to rule. The Omnitrix had provided that, certainly. But it had given him something unexpected as well. Understanding. The very purpose Azimuth had designed it for. As distant rescue ships approached his position, Vilgax made a decision. His war was far from over. But perhaps its objective needed reconsideration. The Omnitrix wasn't merely a weapon. It was evolution itself, personified, controllable, adaptable. And whoever mastered its true potential would shape not just the present, but the future of all species. That mastery would be his. And neither Azimuth nor the Tennysons would stop him from claiming his destiny. Chapter 2, Transformation. 6 months after the destruction of his flagship, Vilgax stood before the massive viewport of his new command vessel, the Chimerian Conqueror. Twice the size of its predecessor, its black hull bristled with weapons systems reverse-engineered from a dozen conquered worlds. The perfect symbol of his expanding empire. Yet Vilgax found no satisfaction in watching the stars. His mind remained fixed on his defeat at the hands of children, and the words Azimuth had spoken. "My lord," his new second-in-command approached cautiously. "The governors from the Andromeda systems await your address." Vilgax didn't turn. "They can wait." He raised his wrist, studying the Omnitrix. Since his encounter with the Tennysons, he'd pushed himself to master even more transformations. Not just for combat applications, but understanding their subtle nuances, exactly as Azimuth suggested he couldn't. "Sir, they've been waiting for 3 hours. Some are growing restless." Vilgax finally turned, eyes narrowing. "Restless? Perhaps they need a reminder of what happens to those who test my patience." The officer swallowed nervously. "Of course not, my lord. I simply meant, I know what you meant, Commander Raff." Vilgax moved away from the viewport. "Establish the connection. It's time my governors understood our new direction." Minutes later, Vilgax faced a semicircle of holographic projections, representatives from 27 conquered systems. Some were species he'd incorporated into his own genetic arsenal through the Omnitrix. Others were simply unfortunate enough to lie in his path of conquest. "My loyal governors," Vilgax began, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. "For too long, we have focused solely on expansion. Taking world after world, adding to our numbers but not our strength." Murmurs arose from several holograms. "This changes today," Vilgax continued. "Our new priority is consolidation and development. Each world in my empire will implement the technological upgrades being transmitted to you now. Special focus will be placed on genetic research and enhancement." A Tetraman governor spoke up. "Forgiveness, Emperor Vilgax, but many of our worlds still rebuild from your conquest. These upgrades will strain already limited resources." Vilgax's eyes locked onto the four-armed alien. "Are you questioning my directive, Governor Marius?" "No, my lord," the Tetraman backpedaled quickly. "Merely pointing out logistical challenges." "Challenges exist to be overcome," Vilgax replied coldly. "But I understand your concern. Therefore, my fleet will redistribute resources from the core worlds to those in need. No world in my empire will be left vulnerable." This announcement brought surprised looks from several governors. My engineers have also developed more efficient energy conversion technology, Vilgax continued. Implementing these systems will reduce consumption by 60% while increasing output. Again, these specifications are in your transmission packets. A reptilian governor leaned forward. This is, most generous, Emperor. May I ask what prompted this shift in policy? Vilgax paused, considering how much to reveal. Let us say I've gained new perspective. An empire that consumes itself from within cannot stand against external threats. And make no mistake, threats are coming. The governors exchanged uneasy glances. You've all heard rumors of my defeat at the hands of the plumbers, Vilgax acknowledged, surprising them with his candor. What you haven't heard is why I've allowed these rumors to persist. While Tennyson and his allies believe they've driven me back, I've been preparing, studying a new enemy that threatens not just my empire, but all sentient life in this galaxy. Vilgax activated a holographic display showing a massive white alien with purple-black features and red eyes. The hybrid. An ancient species that believes itself superior to all others. They've begun systematic extermination campaigns at the edges of known space. Gasps and murmurs spread through the governors. Unlike my controlled conquest, they leave nothing alive, Vilgax continued. No subjugation, no integration, only destruction. Their technology rivals even mine, and their numbers are vast. What would you have us do, Emperor? Asked a crystalline Petrosapian. Vilgax straightened to his full height. Prepare. Strengthen. Evolve. The upgrades I've provided will make your worlds less appetizing targets. Meanwhile, I will take the fight directly to them, assess their capabilities personally. He surveyed the circle of governors. Any world that fails to implement these changes will be considered deadweight, and cut loose. I protect what's mine, but only if it's worth protecting. You have 1 month. Do not disappoint me. The transmission ended, leaving Commander Raff staring at his master with newfound respect, and confusion. My lord, if I may, this approach differs significantly from your previous strategies. Vilgax moved to a tactical display showing hybrid movements. The game has changed, Commander. So must the player. He traced a finger along expansion vectors. The hybrid consider all other species impure, fit only for extermination. Such blind prejudice is inefficient. Raff studied his emperor carefully. 6 months ago, Vilgax would never have concerned himself with the welfare of conquered planets. He conquered, he exploited, he moved on. This new emphasis on strengthening his empire rather than simply expanding it marked a significant shift. Sir, some may interpret these changes as weakness. Vilgax turned, eyes flashing dangerously. Then they understand neither strength nor weakness. A blade that shatters on first impact is useless, no matter how sharp. I am forging this empire into something unbreakable. He activated the Omnitrix, cycling through alien profiles thoughtfully. Have you ever wondered, Commander, why species evolve so differently across the galaxy? Different atmospheres, different gravity, different threats, yet all developing intelligence, creativity, adaptability. Raff blinked, surprised by the philosophical question. I can't say I have, my lord. I have, Vilgax replied quietly. Especially after experiencing existence as dozens of different species. Each form brings not just abilities, but perspective. He stopped on the Galvan profile. Understanding is power, Commander. Remember that. Before Raff could respond, an alert sounded from the tactical console. Hybrid ships detected in the Koros system, reported the sensor officer. 3 capital vessels approaching an inhabited moon. Vilgax's expression hardened. Perfect timing. Prepare my personal shuttle. It's time I assessed these hybrid personally. You're going alone? Raff asked, unable to hide his alarm. Vilgax raised his wrist, the Omnitrix gleaming. I'm never alone, Commander. That's the point. On Earth, in a reinforced bunker beneath Plumber headquarters, Ben Tennyson ducked beneath a swinging mechanical arm before rolling away from a barrage of foam projectiles. "Come on, Ben. Focus." Max called from the observation booth. Ben gritted his teeth, pushing himself harder as the training room's automated defenses recalibrated for his movements. 6 months of intensive training had transformed the once average 10-year-old into something extraordinary, even without the Omnitrix. Across the room, Gwen moved through a different set of obstacles, her hands glowing with magical energy as she deflected incoming attacks. The Ultimatrix gleamed on her wrist, and used during this particular exercise. "Time," Max announced as the systems powered down. "Better, both of you. Ben, your evasion tactics are improving, but you're still telegraphing your roles. Gwen, excellent energy conservation, but watch your left side, you're leaving it exposed during complex castings." The children nodded, breathing hard as they grabbed towels and water bottles. "When do we get to the real missions?" Ben asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We've been training forever." Max exchanged glances with Azimuth, who sat on his shoulder watching the proceedings with analytical interest. "Soon," Max replied. "Our intelligence suggests Vilgax is on the move again, but in an unexpected direction. He's engaging hybrid forces at the edge of the Koros system." "Hybrid?" Gwen questioned. "You mentioned them before. The xenophobic species that considers all other life impure." Azimuth nodded. "Correct. And among the few species whose DNA is not contained in the Omnitrix or Ultimatrix." "Why not?" Ben asked, always curious about the devices that had changed their lives. "Because they refused," Azimuth explained. "The hybrid consider their genetic code sacred, perfect. The very idea of combining it with lesser species is abhorrent to them." The Galvan's expression darkened. "Their prejudice blinds them to a critical reality, their perfect DNA is killing them." "What do you mean?" Gwen asked. "Generations of inbreeding to maintain genetic purity has introduced fatal flaws," Azimuth explained. "Their entire species faces extinction within a few generations due to accumulated genetic degradation. Rather than accept this and seek help, they've decided to take the rest of the universe with them in a final act of genocidal spite." Ben frowned. "And Vilgax is fighting them? Why would he care?" "That's what we need to find out," Max replied. "Vilgax doesn't do anything without purpose. If he's engaging the hybrid, he has a reason." An alarm suddenly sounded throughout the base. Red lights pulsed as a computerized voice announced, "Alert. Unidentified spacecraft entering Earth atmosphere. Trajectory indicates Bellwood landing zone." Max moved quickly to the communication panel. "Security team to intercept points. Full containment protocol." "Is it Vilgax?" Ben asked, tensing for action. "Unknown," Max replied. "But we're about to find out." He turned to the children. "This is it, your first field mission. Stick close, follow protocols, and if I give an order, you obey instantly." "Understood." Both children nodded solemnly. "Gwen, the Ultimatrix is authorized, but only if absolutely necessary. We don't know who's arriving or what they want." "Got it, Grandpa," Gwen replied, instinctively touching the device on her wrist. As they moved toward the deployment area, Azimuth hopped from Max's shoulder to Gwen's. "Remember what we discussed about the master control," he said quietly. "It's locked for your protection, but in true emergency, the voice command sequence will override." Gwen nodded, though her expression betrayed her nervousness. The power of 10,000 alien transformations at her fingertips, with the responsibility that came with it. Minutes later, they approached the landing site in the forests outside Bellwood. Plumber agents had established a perimeter around a sleek, silver craft unlike anything in their records. Its design was elegant yet clearly built for speed and stealth rather than combat. "Life signs?" Max asked the team leader. Just one, sir. Humanoid but definitely not human. And... The agent hesitated, it's requesting you by name. Specifically asked for Max Tennyson and his grandchildren. Max's expression hardened. Maintain positions. I'll approach first. Grandpa, Ben started to object. No arguments, Max cut him off. Stay back until I signal. As Max approached the ship, a seam appeared in its smooth hull, widening into a doorway. A ramp extended, and from the shadows emerged a tall, slender figure with blue skin and crystalline features. Tetrax. Max stopped, surprised. What are you doing here? The Petrosapian warrior descended the ramp, his crystalline face grim. Following my conscience, finally. I bring information, and a warning. Max signaled the children forward while maintaining the security perimeter. Ben, Gwen, this is Tetrax Shard, Max introduced them. Former enforcer for Vilgax, now apparently, what exactly? A deserter, Tetrax replied simply. Vilgax has changed, Tennyson. His strategies, his goals, even his treatment of conquered worlds. Something happened after your last encounter, something significant. Ben studied the crystalline alien with open curiosity. You look like one of the aliens Vilgax turns into. Petrosapian, Tetrax confirmed. I was forced to teach him our combat techniques in exchange for sparing my people. But recently, he's withdrawn forces from many conquered worlds, focusing instead on strengthening their infrastructure, improving living conditions. That doesn't sound like Vilgax, Max said suspiciously. It didn't to me either, Tetrax agreed. Until I discovered why. The hybrid are coming, Tennyson. And Vilgax believes they're an extinction-level threat. Max's expression darkened. We're aware of the hybrid. But why would Vilgax care about other species facing extinction? Because he's experienced existence as those species, Azimuth interjected, hopping onto Max's shoulder for a better view. The Omnitrix is doing exactly what I designed it to do, fostering understanding through direct experience. Tetrax's eyes widened at seeing the legendary creator. First thinker Azimuth. Your presence confirms the gravity of the situation. What exactly is Vilgax planning? Max pressed. He's launching a preemptive strike against hybrid forces in the Koros system, Tetrax explained. But it's a test, gathering tactical data while assessing their capabilities. His real plan involves something he calls Project Chimera. Genetic hybridization, Azimuth murmured. He's using the Omnitrix's DNA database for large-scale genetic modification. Gwen looked alarmed. Is that even possible? Theoretically, Azimuth replied. The Omnitrix contains genetic repair protocols that could be modified for such purposes. But the power requirements would be enormous, and the ethical implications. Vilgax doesn't care about ethics, Max reminded them. Perhaps not before, Tetrax countered. But as I said, he's changing. He spoke of elevating species rather than merely conquering them. Evolution guided by his hand. Ben frowned. That still sounds like he thinks he knows better than everyone else. Because he does, in many ways, Tetrax admitted reluctantly. The Omnitrix has given him insights across thousands of species. He understands strengths, weaknesses, and potential as no single being ever has. Max looked troubled. A benevolent dictator is still a dictator. What exactly are you proposing, Tetrax? Why come to us? The Petrosapian's crystalline features hardened. Because despite Vilgax's evolution, the hybrid are worse. They won't stop until all impure life is extinguished. At least Vilgax seeks to rule the living, not the dead. He turned to face Azimuth directly. I propose a temporary alliance. Vilgax needs the complete genetic key to unlock the Omnitrix's full potential, something only you possess, Creator. The hybrid need to be stopped before their extermination campaign reaches populated sectors. And the Tennysons need to ensure neither side gains absolute power. A three-way standoff, Max summarized, skepticism evident. A pragmatic solution, Tetrax corrected. Help Vilgax defeat the hybrid, but maintain leverage to ensure he doesn't become the next threat. An uncomfortable silence fell as they considered the proposal. I don't trust him, Ben finally said. Vilgax, I mean. No offense, he added quickly to Tetrax. None taken, the warrior replied. I don't fully trust him either. But I've seen the hybrid's handiwork. Entire worlds sterilized. At least with Vilgax, there's a chance, however small, for something better. Max looked to Azimuth. What do you think? It's your technology at the center of this. The Galvan's expression was unreadable. Bring Tetrax inside. I want to hear everything about this Project Chimera before making any decisions. As they headed back toward the base, Ben moved beside Tetrax, unable to contain his curiosity. So you taught Vilgax how to use Petrosapien powers, he asked. What's he like? You know, as a student. Tetrax glanced down at the boy. Frighteningly competent. He mastered techniques in days that take our people years. A hint of reluctant respect crept into his voice. But there were moments when he seemed genuinely interested in our culture, our history. Not just our combat capabilities. You think he's really changing? Ben pressed. Tetrax considered this carefully. I think he's evolving, just like any species does when exposed to new environments. The question is whether that evolution leads somewhere better or worse than where he began. The Koros system's third moon hung in space, a desolate rock harboring a small mining colony of mixed species. Perfect for Vilgax's purposes, insignificant enough that the hybrid might consider it a simple test target, yet populated enough to force Vilgax to consider civilian casualties in his response. His shuttle maintained stealth orbit, sensors monitoring hybrid ship movements as they approached the unsuspecting colony. They're deploying DN aliens, reported the shuttle's computer, identifying the hybrid's genetically modified foot soldiers. As expected, Vilgax murmured. Begin recording all tactical data. I want complete analysis of their movement patterns, weapons capabilities, and command structure. He studied the incoming ships with clinical interest. 3 vessels, each carrying approximately 200 DN aliens and a handful of true hybrid commanders. Overwhelming force for such a small colony, which told Vilgax they weren't merely conquering, but exterminating. The first DN aliens touched down near the colony's main habitat dome, immediately opening fire on defensive systems. Colony security forces responded, but their weapons proved largely ineffective against the invaders' chitinous armor. Vilgax watched civilians fleeing toward emergency shelters, pursued by the relentless DN aliens. A coldly logical part of his mind noted that this provided excellent data on the enemy's pursuit algorithms and target prioritization. Another part, one that would have been alien to him a year ago, noted the unnecessary cruelty of the attack. Computer, analysis of colony defensive capabilities. Minimal, came the response. Standard mining security protocols. No military-grade weapons or trained personnel. Estimated civilian casualties if no intervention. 100% within 17 minutes. Vilgax frowned. A year ago, he would have simply observed, perhaps even appreciated the hybrid's efficiency. Now, he found himself annoyed. There was no strategic value in slaughtering miners. No resources gained, no tactical advantage, just destruction for its own sake. Inefficient. Wasteful. Wrong. The realization surprised him. Morality had never factored into his calculations before. Yet after experiencing existence through so many different forms, after literally walking in the shoes of dozens of species, something had shifted in his perspective. Prepare for deployment, he ordered, standing from the command chair. Sir, the computer warned, engaging now will reveal our presence and sacrifice the element of surprise for future encounters. Noted, Vilgax replied curtly. Deploy anyway. He activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through available transformations before selecting one particularly suited for this engagement, a massive, dinosaur-like alien with immense strength and nearly impenetrable skin. The transformation washed over him, restructuring his DNA into the Vaxasaurian form he called Humongosaur. Standing nearly 12 feet tall with muscle-bound limbs and a powerful tail, this form could grow even larger when necessary. Perfect for making an entrance. Vilgax dropped from his shuttle directly into the colony's central plaza, the impact creating a crater that sent DN aliens flying in all directions. Rising to his full height, he roared a challenge that echoed through the colony's communication systems. The DN aliens turned from their civilian targets, instantly recognizing the greater threat. They opened fire, energy weapons striking Humongosaur's thick hide with minimal effect. Vilgax charged, each thunderous step shaking the ground. His massive fists swept through the front line of DN aliens, sending broken bodies flying. A second group tried flanking him, but Vilgax's tail lashed out, catching them mid-movement and smashing them against a nearby structure. As the battle intensified, Vilgax triggered the Vaxasaurian's growth ability, expanding to nearly 60 feet tall. Now truly towering over the battlefield, he began systematically crushing the invasion force. From one of the hybrid ships, a tall, white-skinned commander emerged, red eyes narrowing at the unexpected resistance. "What is this abomination?" the hybrid demanded of his subordinates. "No mere colonist possesses such power." Before anyone could respond, Vilgax's enormous hand swept through the remaining DN aliens surrounding the commander, leaving them broken on the ground. "I am Vilgax," he announced, voice deepened by his transformation. "This colony is under my protection." The hybrid's face contorted with disgust. "Vilgax? The warlord who corrupts himself with impure DNA. You are worse than these mining vermin, a deliberate polluter of genetic sanctity." Vilgax laughed, the sound rumbling through the colony. "Your concept of genetic purity is as flawed as your tactics. Diversity breeds strength. Isolation breeds weakness. Blasphemy." The hybrid raised his arm, which transformed into an organic cannon. "You will be cleansed with the rest of this impure filth." Energy blast struck Vilgax's massive chest, actually causing him to step back. The hybrid weapons were more powerful than he'd anticipated. Interesting. Vilgax charged forward, absorbing more blasts as he closed the distance. The hybrid commander held his ground, apparently confident in his superiority despite the size difference. That confidence wavered when Vilgax's enormous fist connected, sending the hybrid commander crashing through 3 separate structures before embedding in a reinforced wall. The remaining DN aliens hesitated, suddenly leaderless. Vilgax took advantage, sweeping through their ranks with devastating efficiency. Within minutes, the invasion force was in disarray. The hybrid commander extracted himself from the wall, ichor leaking from various wounds as he glared at Vilgax with hatred. "This changes nothing," the commander spat. "You've merely delayed the inevitable. The hybrid cleansing cannot be stopped, particularly by a genetic deviant like yourself." Vilgax approached slowly, deliberately allowing the Omnitrix to time out. Green light flashed, and he returned to his original form, allowing the hybrid to see him clearly. "I've accessed the genetic codes of thousands of species," Vilgax said calmly. "Experienced their strengths, their adaptations, their unique evolutionary solutions." He stopped just outside striking distance. "Tell me, hybrid, have you experienced anything beyond your own limited existence?" "Why would I contaminate myself with inferiority?" the hybrid sneered. "Because your superiority is killing you," Vilgax replied. "The genetic degradation in your cellular structure is obvious to anyone who knows what to look for. 3, perhaps 4 generations before total collapse of your species." The hybrid's red eyes widened momentarily before narrowing in rage. "Lies. Our bloodlines are perfect." "Perfect things don't die out," Vilgax countered. "Yet your population declines with each generation. Fewer viable offspring. Increasing genetic disorders. Your purity is a slow suicide. Enough. The hybrid lunged forward, arm transforming into a blade. Vilgax sidestepped with surprising agility for his size, activating the Omnitrix again. This time, he transformed into a Galvan, tiny, gray, with an oversized head housing an incredible brain. The sudden size change caused the hybrid to miss completely, slashing through empty air where Vilgax had stood. Your genetic structure is fascinating, Vilgax commented in his now high-pitched voice, hopping onto a nearby console. Advanced immune response, remarkable strength-to-weight ratio, impressive cellular regeneration, all degrading due to accumulated recessive traits. His tiny fingers flew across the terminal. With appropriate intervention, these flaws could be corrected. We would never accept outside genetic material. The hybrid roared, trying to smash the tiny gray matter with his fist. Vilgax easily avoided the clumsy attack. Pride before survival. How disappointingly irrational. He tapped into the colony's communication system. But then, extremism often masquerades as principle when fear is the true motivation. A proximity alarm sounded throughout the colony. The remaining hybrid ships were repositioning, weapons charging. It appears your commanders lack confidence in your ability to handle a single opponent, Vilgax observed, hopping down from the console. Typical authoritarian hierarchy, failure is unacceptable, regardless of circumstances. The hybrid commander backed toward the exit, eyes darting between Vilgax and the approaching ships. This isn't over, genetic deviant. On that, we agree, Vilgax replied as the Omnitrix symbol on his back began blinking, indicating an impending timeout. Consider this encounter a preview. Advance into my territory again, and the response will be less measured. Green light flashed, returning Vilgax to his original form just as the hybrid commander fled the colony. Orbital bombardment began seconds later, targeting the central plaza where Vilgax stood. Energy beams struck with devastating force, but where they expected to find Vilgax, they found only empty space. He had already transformed again, this time into his necrophrygian form, intangible and invisible as he floated toward his shuttle. Mission accomplished. He had the data he needed, hybrid capabilities, tactics, and most importantly, confirmation of their genetic degradation. Now he needed to accelerate Project Chimera before the hybrid launched their full-scale invasion. As his shuttle departed the system, Vilgax reviewed the battle recordings. The colonists had taken shelter during the fighting, suffering minimal casualties. Another time, he wouldn't have cared about collateral damage. Now things were different. He was different. Whether that made him stronger or weaker remained to be seen. In a classified research facility orbiting a neutron star, a female figure with metallic blue skin studied holographic displays of Vilgax's encounter with the hybrid. Her body hummed with cybernetic enhancements, eyes glowing with artificial intelligence as she processed the tactical data. Fascinating, she murmured, voice carrying a synthetic undertone. The mighty Vilgax, defender of innocent colonists. How far you've fallen, old rival. A subordinate approached cautiously. Commander XJ-9, analysis complete on the Omnitrix energy signatures. The device appears to be operating at only 30% of theoretical capacity. XJ-9 turned, a cruel smile forming on her metallic features. As expected. Without Asmatha's genetic key, Vilgax can only access basic transformation functions. She gestured to a containment chamber where a device similar to the Omnitrix pulsed with red energy. Unlike our Nematrix, which requires no such limitations. She approached the chamber, admiring her creation. Where the Omnitrix contained DNA from sentient species across the galaxy, the Nematrix contained their predators, the apex hunters that evolved specifically to prey upon them. Is the test subject ready? She asked. Yes, Commander. Final neural suppressors are in place. Without them, no sentient being could control the savage instincts of the Nematrix predators. XJ9 nodded. Perfect. Bring him in. Doors slid open, and guards escorted a massive, dog-like alien with red fur into the laboratory. Neural control devices embedded in his skull kept him docile despite his fearsome appearance. Kyber's hunting beast, XJ9 explained to her team. Specifically bred for tracking and combat. Limited sentience, making him ideal for our purposes. She approached the creature, who growled softly. You will be the instrument of Vilgax's downfall, my pet. And through you, I will claim the Omnitrix for myself. She attached the Nematrix to the beast's collar. Red energy pulsed through its body, causing it to shudder and grow. Now, XJ9 continued, turning back to the tactical displays, we need the final component of our plan. She enlarged an image of Azimuth. The genetic key that unlocks the Omnitrix's true power. And I know exactly how to acquire it. Her cybernetic fingers traced a path across star charts toward Earth. The Tennyson children. Azimuth's new protégés. Where they are, the Creator is never far away. The beast snarled, as if understanding its coming mission. Patience, XJ9 soothed. First, we let Vilgax and the hybrid bloody each other further. Then, when the moment is perfect. Her metallic features hardened. We take everything. Back on Earth, in Plumber headquarters, Azimuth paced across a conference table, his tiny form belying the gravity of his presentation. Project Chimera, as Tetrax described it, represents a fundamental manipulation of the Omnitrix's primary functions, the Galvan explained to Max, Ben, Gwen, and several high-ranking plumbers. Instead of transforming a single user, Vilgax plans to broadcast transformation energy across entire populations. Is that even possible? Max asked, brow furrowed. Theoretically, Azimuth admitted. The Omnitrix contains repair protocols designed to correct genetic damage. With sufficient power and the proper amplification technology, these protocols could be modified to affect large groups simultaneously. But why? Ben interjected. What does Vilgax gain by transforming others? Azimuth turned to the boy. Consider the hybrid problem. A species dying from genetic degradation, too proud to accept outside help. Vilgax's solution appears to be forced genetic hybridization, introducing beneficial traits from other species to correct their fatal flaws. Without their consent, Gwen pointed out. That's still wrong, even if the intention is to help them. Precisely, Azimuth agreed. The ethical implications are staggering. Yet the alternative is extinction, for the hybrid and potentially countless other species in their path. Tetrax, who stood silently against the wall, finally spoke. There's another aspect to consider. Vilgax believes the Omnitrix was always meant for large-scale genetic manipulation. He sees himself not as perverting its purpose, but fulfilling it. All eyes turned to Azimuth. Is he right? Max asked directly. The Galvan sighed, a weight seeming to settle on his tiny shoulders. The Omnitrix was designed as a repository of galactic DNA, a safeguard against extinction events. Its transformation capabilities were initially a means to an end, allowing the user to experience other forms and foster cross-species understanding. But? Ben prompted, sensing there was more. But yes, its ultimate function could indeed be genetic restoration on a massive scale, Azimuth admitted. In case of catastrophic events that threatened entire species. However, I never intended it to be used unilaterally by one being imposing their will on others. Gwen studied the Ultimatrix on her wrist with new understanding. So both devices can do this? Transform others? The Ultimatrix lacks certain components necessary for large-scale application, Azimuth explained. A deliberate limitation I implemented after seeing how the original Omnitrix could be misused. Max leaned forward. Bottom line, Azimuth. Can Vilgax actually pull this off without your help? No, the Galvan stated firmly. The genetic key required for full implementation remains secure. Without it, the Omnitrix can only transform its wearer, not project that transformation to others. So what's he doing in the Koro system? Ben asked. Testing limitations, Tetrax suggested. Gathering data on hybrid weaknesses while assessing what the Omnitrix can currently do. An alert suddenly flashed across the briefing room screens. One of the plumber technicians activated the incoming transmission. Sir, we're receiving an emergency signal from Galvan Prime. The planet is under attack. On screen, Max ordered. The main display showed chaotic footage of Galvan cities under bombardment. Not from hybrid ships, but from vessels bearing Vilgax's insignia. What? Tetrax exclaimed. This makes no sense. Why would he attack the Galvans now? Asmatha's expression darkened. Because that's where he believes the genetic key is stored. Another transmission broke through, this one directed specifically to their location. The screen shifted to show Vilgax, standing on the bridge of his command ship. Asmath, he addressed the creator directly. I know you're monitoring this transmission. Your stubborn refusal to acknowledge the Omnitrix's true purpose has forced my hand. He can't see or hear us, the technician clarified. This is a one-way broadcast. Vilgax continued, the hybrid launched their full invasion in less than one planetary rotation. Billions will die unless I implement Project Chimera immediately. Surrender the genetic key, or watch your homeworld suffer for your pride. The transmission cut off, leaving stunned silence in the briefing room. Is the key on Galvan Prime? Max asked Asmath directly. The creator shook his head. No. It's here. He tapped his own head. The complete genetic key exists only in my mind, a safeguard against exactly this scenario. Ben stood up. Then we have to stop him. He's attacking innocent people for something they don't even have. Agreed, Max said grimly. Asmath, can you communicate with Galvan authorities? Let them know the key isn't there. They already know, Asmath replied. This attack isn't really about finding the key, it's about forcing me to reveal myself. His eyes narrowed. Vilgax is smarter than this. Something doesn't add up. Tetrax pushed away from the wall. Whatever his game, we need to respond. My ship is fast enough to reach Galvan Prime within hours. I'm coming too, Ben insisted. Both of you are, Max confirmed, looking between his grandchildren. This is what we've been training for. Gwen, you'll use the Ultimatrix only when absolutely necessary, we don't want to reveal that capability unless we have to. What about you, Grandpa? Gwen asked. I'll coordinate from here, Max replied. If this is a diversion, we need to maintain Earth's defenses. He turned to Asmath. Will you go? The Galvan looked troubled. I must. My people are suffering for my creation. He turned to Gwen. Child, I'll need to make adjustments to the Ultimatrix before we leave. If we're heading into conflict with Vilgax, you'll need access to more advanced functions. As preparations for departure began, Ben pulled his grandfather aside. Grandpa, something feels wrong about this. Why would Vilgax suddenly attack Galvan Prime when he's been focused on the hybrid? Max nodded, proud of his grandson's tactical thinking. My thoughts exactly. Stay alert for anything unusual. This could be a trap, or something else entirely. Aboard the Chimerian Conqueror, Commander Raff approached Vilgax with extreme caution. My lord, the transmission to Earth was sent as ordered. However, I must express concern about attacking Galvan Prime. This action contradicts your recent strategic shift toward defending rather than conquering. Vilgax didn't turn from the tactical display showing the Galvan bombardment. Your concern is noted, Commander. And warranted. Then why? Because sometimes appearing predictable is the greatest strategy, Vilgax interrupted. The hybrid monitor our movements. They know of my interest in Asmatha's genetic key. This attack reinforces their perception of me as a typical conqueror, violent, direct, obvious. Raf considered this a deception, then. Of sorts. Vilgax finally turned. The bombardment targets only uninhabited areas and defensive installations, no civilian casualties. A fact the hybrid won't immediately recognize, but Azimuth certainly will. You're sending him a message, Raf realized. Precisely. The Galvan is brilliant but stubborn. He needs to understand the stakes without my revealing our full strategy to potential hybrid spies. Vilgax activated a secondary display showing hybrid fleet movements. Meanwhile, their forces gather exactly where I predicted, focused on what they perceive as my moment of distraction. And the Tennysons? Vilgax's expression hardened. Will respond exactly as expected. Azimuth will accompany them, bringing the genetic key directly to us. But not here. He zoomed the tactical display to a small, seemingly insignificant planet. Here. The nexus of intersecting hyperspace lanes between Earth, Galvan Prime, and the hybrid staging area. Where three forces will converge, each believing they understand the other's intentions. Raf studied the coordinates with growing appreciation for his master's strategy. Brilliant, my lord. But also extremely dangerous. If any element fails to perform as expected. War contains inherent risks, Commander, Vilgax replied. But the alternative is watching the hybrid sterilize half the galaxy. He turned back to the main display. Prepare my personal shuttle and a select contingent of elite guards. I will depart for the Nexus planet immediately. And the Galvan bombardment? Continue for exactly 17 more minutes, then withdraw all forces. Enough time to appear committed while minimizing actual damage. Vilgax moved toward the exit. And Commander? If I don't return from this mission, implement Protocol Omega. The Empire must survive, regardless of its Emperor's fate. Raf watched his master depart, a troubling realization forming in his mind. For the first time since he'd served under Vilgax, the warlord was contemplating his own mortality. The Omnitrix had changed more than just his tactics. It had given him something he never possessed before. A conscience. Tetrax's ship streaked through hyperspace, pushing its advanced engines to their limits. In the main cabin, Ben watched as Azimuth made final adjustments to Gwen's Ultimatrix. There, the Galvan announced, closing an access panel on the device. I've unlocked the genetic randomizer and enhanced the transformation matrix. You now have access to over 40 alien forms rather than the previous 15. Thank you, Gwen replied, studying the device with a mixture of awe and trepidation. But I'm still not sure I should be the one wearing this. Ben was your first choice for the Omnitrix. Azimuth glanced toward Ben before responding. The universe rarely aligns with our plans, child. You've proven yourself worthy of the responsibility. Ben approached, showing no signs of jealousy or resentment. He's right, Gwen. You've mastered forms I probably would have just used to goof off. Gwen smiled gratefully at her cousin. We're approaching Galvan Prime, Tetrax announced from the pilot's seat. Preparing to exit hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. The swirling tunnel of hyperspace collapsed around them, returning to normal spacetime. But instead of the expected scene of planetary bombardment, they found nothing. Galvan Prime orbited peacefully, its defense systems active but unthreatened. No Chimerian fleet. No battle. No destruction. What the heck? Ben exclaimed. Where's Vilgax? Tetrax ran scans, confirming what their eyes told them. No sign of recent weapons fire or invasion fleet. The transmission we received was a deception, Azimuth concluded grimly. But to what end? Gwen activated the ship's communication system. This is Gwen Tennyson aboard independent vessel with First Thinker Azimuth. Requesting information on recent hostilities. After a moment, a response came from Galvan Planetary Defense. No hostile action has occurred in this system. Repeat, no confirmation of reported attack. Asmatha's expression darkened. We've been manipulated. The question is why Vilgax would want us away from Earth. Maybe that's not it, Ben suggested, studying the star chart. Look at where we are relative to Earth and the hybrid staging area. He traced a line between points. If Vilgax wanted to set a trap, there are more logical locations than sending us to your perfectly safe homeworld. Tetrax enhanced the chart, adding hyperspace lanes to the display. The boy's right. This position makes no strategic sense unless. His crystalline features registered surprise. Unless he wanted us to discover the deception and figure out where he actually is. A triple deception? Gwen asked skeptically. Vilgax has always been clever, Asmath noted. But this level of misdirection suggests something more complex than a simple trap. He studied the chart, identifying intersecting hyperspace routes. There. The Primus Nexus. Where travel lanes between all three locations converge. Why would he want us to go there? Ben wondered. Perhaps, Asmath said slowly, to talk. Tetrax looked skeptical. Talk. Vilgax doesn't talk. He conquers. The Vilgax you knew, perhaps, Asmath countered. But we've all noted his behavioral changes since wielding the Omnitrix. If he truly believes the hybrid threat warrants cooperation, this could be his attempt to arrange it without appearing weak to his subordinates or enemies. Ben considered this. So he creates a fake emergency, knowing we'll figure it out and determine his actual location. Anyone monitoring communications would think we're headed to Galvan Prime, while we actually go to this Nexus place. Precisely, Asmath confirmed. It's how I would arrange a sensitive meeting if I were in his position. Or it's the most elaborate trap ever, Gwen pointed out. Only one way to find out, Tetrax said, altering their course. Entering hyperspace to the Primus Nexus in 3, 2, 1. The stars elongated around them as they plunged back into hyperspace, heading toward a meeting that could change the course of the coming conflict, or end their lives. The Primus Nexus contained a single habitable planet, small, nondescript, with minimal indigenous life and no sentient population. Perfect for clandestine meetings. Vilgax's shuttle had landed in a clearing near a flowing river, his elite guards establishing a perimeter while their emperor waited. He had come in his original form, the Omnitrix inactive on his wrist, a calculated show of vulnerability by choosing not to arrive transformed. When sensors detected an approaching ship, Vilgax ordered his guards to maintain positions but lower weapons. Another calculated risk. Another signal of intent. Tetrax's ship descended gracefully, landing a respectful distance from Vilgax's shuttle. The entry ramp extended, and four figures emerged, Tetrax, Ben, Gwen, and Asmath riding on the girl's shoulder. Right on schedule, Vilgax commented as they approached, guards tensing on both sides. I calculated a 78% probability you would decipher my actual location. The fake attack on Galvan Prime was unnecessarily dramatic, Asmath replied dryly. But effective in drawing you out while maintaining appearances for watchful eyes. Vilgax's gaze lingered on Gwen's wrist, noting the Ultimatrix. I see you've chosen a new wielder for your second creation, Asmath. Interesting choice. Why are we here, Vilgax? Ben demanded, stepping forward despite Tetrax's cautioning hand. Direct, as always, Vilgax observed. Very well. The hybrid launched their full invasion in less than 12 hours. Their target is not my empire, as I initially believed, but Earth. What? Gwen exclaimed. Why Earth? Because of him, Vilgax pointed to Asmath. The hybrid have learned of the Omnitrix's potential to correct their genetic degradation. They would rather destroy it, and all knowledge of it, than accept salvation from what they consider inferior species. How do you know this? Tetrax asked suspiciously. Intercepted communications. Infiltration of their command structure. And logical deduction. Vilgax activated a holographic display from his armor, showing hybrid fleet movements. They've committed nearly 80% of their forces to this single attack. Their desperation grows as their genetic condition worsens. Azimuth studied the tactical display with growing concern. These numbers suggest they intend complete planetary sterilization. Correct, Vilgax confirmed. Every living thing on Earth, eliminated. Followed by systematic extermination of any world with knowledge of the Omnitrix. We have to warn Grandpa. Ben exclaimed. Already done, Vilgax replied, surprising them. I transmitted detailed intelligence to Plumber headquarters before your arrival. Your grandfather is coordinating defenses as we speak. Gwen's eyes narrowed. Why would you help Earth? You've tried to conquer it yourself many times. Because Earth's defenders now include the only beings who can help implement Project Chimera, Vilgax answered, looking directly at Azimuth. I need the genetic key, Creator. Not to conquer, but to save. Save who? Ben challenged. The hybrid? They don't want your help. Sometimes salvation must be imposed, Vilgax replied calmly. Their extinction would destabilize 16 star systems currently under their control, creating power vacuums that would lead to countless regional conflicts. So this is about maintaining galactic stability? Tetrax asked skeptically. Partially, Vilgax admitted. But also because I've experienced existence as too many species to watch one exterminate itself out of pride. He turned to Azimuth again. The Omnitrix has changed me, Creator. As you perhaps intended. Azimuth studied the warlord thoughtfully. You understand that I cannot simply give you unrestricted access to the genetic key. The power to rewrite a species' DNA is too great for any single being to wield unilaterally. I anticipated this response, Vilgax said. Which is why I propose a compromise. You retain the key but accompany me to implement a targeted genetic modification of the hybrid leadership. Once they understand their condition can be corrected without compromising their perceived superiority, the invasion will be unnecessary. That's actually reasonable, Gwen admitted reluctantly. But dangerous, Tetrax pointed out. The hybrid would never willingly allow such modification. Hence the targeted approach, Vilgax explained. Their supreme commander must be convinced first. The others will follow hierarchical protocol. Before they could discuss further, a proximity alarm sounded from both ships. Something was entering the atmosphere, something big. Multiple vessels detected, reported one of Vilgax's guards. Configuration unknown. The sky darkened as 3 massive ships descended through the clouds, unlike either hybrid or Chimerian design. Sleek, predatory, with pulsing red energy signatures. Impossible, Vilgax murmured, genuine surprise in his voice. Those energy readings. A transmission cut across all communication channels, and a female voice with metallic undertones filled the air. How touching. Old enemies gathered to face a common threat. The main ship's underside opened, revealing a blue-skinned female figure with cybernetic enhancements. Unfortunately, your alliance ends here. XJ-9, Vilgax growled, recognition and hatred evident in his voice. You know her? Ben asked. A rival warlord from the Andromeda Galaxy, Vilgax explained quickly. Cybernetically enhanced and obsessed with the Omnitrix since its creation. XJ-9 descended on a gravity platform, flanked by robotic soldiers. Still using outdated organic troops, Vilgax. How disappointing. Her glowing eyes fixed on Azimuth. Creator. At last we meet. Your genetic key will make an excellent addition to my collection. Azimuth showed no fear despite her threatening presence. Another would-be conqueror who fails to understand the Omnitrix's purpose. How tedious. XJ-9 laughed, the sound unnaturally harmonic due to her cybernetic vocal processors. Oh, I understand its purpose perfectly. Universal genetic manipulation, the power to rewrite reality on a biological level. She raised her arm, revealing a device similar to the Omnitrix but pulsing with red energy. But while you were all distracted with hybrid threats and false alliances, I created something better. The Omnitrix, Azimuth whispered, genuine alarm in his voice. What's a Omnitrix? Ben asked. A perversion, Azimuth replied. Where the Omnitrix contains DNA from sentient species, the Omnitrix contains their evolutionary predators, the apex hunters that evolved specifically to prey upon them. XJ9 smiled cruelly. Precisely. And unlike your precious Omnitrix, mine requires no genetic key to function at full capacity. She raised her hand, signaling her ships. Surrender now, and I might let some of you live as test subjects. Resist, and, well, my pets are hungry. From her ships emerged dozens of creatures, twisted, predatory versions of familiar aliens. Where Vilgax's pyronite form controlled fire, these creatures absorbed it. Where his petrosapien form was crystalline, these had diamond-shattering jaws. This was your plan all along, Vilgax realized. To let the hybrid and my forces weaken each other while you developed the Omnitrix. I've spent years watching you, learning from your mistakes, XJ9 confirmed. The greatest being your attachment to organic life forms. Technology is the future, Vilgax. Pure, efficient, immortal. Vilgax turned to the Tennysons and Azimuth. We have a common enemy now. Whatever our past conflicts, survival requires cooperation. Ben nodded grimly. Temporary truce. But after she's defeated, one apocalypse at a time, young Tennyson, Vilgax replied, activating the Omnitrix. For now, let's show XJ9 the difference between wielding power and understanding it. Green light engulfed Vilgax as he transformed into his massive Vaxasaurian form. Beside him, Gwen activated the Ultimatrix, selecting a transformation that bathed her in similar green energy, emerging as a pyronite, a being of living flame. Tetrax formed crystal blades from his arms while Ben took a fighting stance, having trained extensively in combat despite lacking transformation abilities. As XJ9's predatory forces charged, the unlikely alliance braced for battle, united by a threat greater than their differences. The battle erupted across the clearing, each combatant engaging their nearest opponent. Vilgax's Vaxasaurian form smashed through the front line of predators, while Gwen's pyronite form launched streams of fire that kept others at bay. Tetrax moved with practiced efficiency, his crystalline blades finding vulnerable points on even the most armored foes. Ben, despite lacking transformation abilities, proved surprisingly effective. Months of training with plumber weapons and hand-to-hand combat techniques allowed him to disable several robotic soldiers, using their momentum against them. Azimuth, meanwhile, had disappeared into the undergrowth, not fleeing, but implementing a plan of his own. XJ9 watched the battle with calculated interest, her cybernetic systems analyzing each combatant's fighting style and weaknesses. When Vilgax charged toward her position, she simply smiled and activated her Omnitrix. Red energy washed over her cybernetic body, transforming it into a massive, predatory version of Vilgax's own Vaxasaurian form, but larger, with additional armor plates and specialized hunting adaptations. Like it, she taunted, her voice distorted by the transformation. Every predator specifically evolved to hunt its prey's weaknesses. She met Vilgax's charge head-on, the impact creating a shockwave that knocked nearby combatants off their feet. Despite Vilgax's considerable strength and experience, XJ9's predatory form proved stronger, designed by evolution to overcome exactly his type of alien. Seeing Vilgax struggling, Gwen launched herself into the air on a column of flame, raining fire down on XJ9. The cybernetic warlord simply laughed, her predatory form absorbing the heat. Foolish child. This form feeds on thermal energy. Gwen immediately stopped her attack, switching tactics by transforming into a new form, a crystalline petrosapien like Tetrax. She landed beside Vilgax, who nodded in appreciation of her adaptability. Together, he growled, and they charged simultaneously. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Ben had worked his way toward XJ-9's gravity platform, recognizing it as both her entry vehicle and potentially her escape route. If they could disable it. He ducked beneath a slashing predator, rolling to the platform's control panel. Years of video games had taught him something about interfaces, and Grandpa Max's training had covered basic alien technology. Between the two, he quickly identified what looked like a power coupling. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, jamming his plumber multi-tool into the coupling and twisting. Sparks flew as the platform's gravity field destabilized. Alarms blared from XJ-9's ships, drawing her attention momentarily from her battle with Vilgax and Gwen. "No," she snarled, seeing Ben sabotaging her equipment. With a brutal backhand, she sent both Vilgax and Gwen flying before charging toward the boy. Ben looked up just in time to see the massive predatory alien bearing down on him. No time to run. No place to hide. Then, something unexpected, a tiny gray figure leapt from the underbrush, landing on the platform beside Ben. Azimuth, carrying what appeared to be a modified plumber weapon. "Down," the Galvan shouted, and Ben dropped flat as Azimuth fired the device. A pulse of energy struck XJ-9 directly in the chest, causing her transformation to flicker unstably. Red electricity crackled across her body as she roared in pain and confusion. What have you done?" she demanded as her form fluctuated between her cybernetic body and various predatory aliens. "Destabilize the Omnitrix's transformation matrix," Azimuth explained calmly, adjusting the weapon for another shot. "Crude but effective. You copied my design without understanding the underlying stabilization principles." Vilgax had recovered by now, switching from his Vaxasaurian form to a conductoid, a black alien with plugs on its fingertips and long antennae. As XJ-9 struggled with her malfunctioning Omnitrix, Vilgax approached, absorbing the erratic energy she was emitting. "You believe technology alone made you superior," he said, his voice carrying an electrical resonance in this form. "But truly understanding the power you wield, that's what you lacked." With a gesture, he redirected the absorbed energy in a massive discharge that struck XJ-9 squarely. The combination of Azimuth's destabilization and Vilgax's energy manipulation proved too much for her cybernetic systems. XJ-9 collapsed, her form reverting to its cybernetic base state as the Omnitrix sputtered and went dark on her wrist. Across the battlefield, her predators and robots faltered without her command signal, giving Tetrax and the guards the opportunity to gain the upper hand. Vilgax approached the fallen warlord, returning to his original form as the Omnitrix timed out. "Your mistake was believing power comes from what you control. True power comes from what you understand." XJ-9 laughed weakly, internal systems still sparking. "Rich, coming from you. The great conqueror, suddenly philosopher." She looked past him to Azimuth. "He'll betray them, just as you will. Pretending to be something you're not." Before Vilgax could respond, an alert sounded from both his shuttle and Tetrax's ship. The crystalline warrior checked his communicator, expression darkening. "Hybrid invasion force has launched," he reported grimly. "Estimated arrival at Earth in less than 3 hours." XJ-9 smiled despite her damaged state. "Perfect timing. I've kept you distracted long enough." Realization dawned on Vilgax's face. "You were working with the hybrid. Not with parallel interests. They destroy Earth. I collect the remains. Everyone focused on them while I developed the Omnitrix." Her smile widened. "Even failing. I've ensured your failure too. Not enough time." Vilgax turned to Azimuth. "Is she right? Is there insufficient time to implement Project Chimera?" The Galvan's expression was grave. "The full implementation requires more preparation than we have. However." He glanced at the unconscious XJ-9 and her disabled Omnitrix. "Her technology, combined with both the Omnitrix and Ultimatrix, might provide an alternative solution." "What kind of solution?" Ben asked. A targeted modification. Not the entire hybrid species, but their supreme commander, as Vilgax originally suggested. Azimuth hopped down from the platform. If we can convince their leader, the hierarchical nature of their society will do the rest. Gwen, who had reverted to human form, looked skeptical. And how exactly do we get to their supreme commander through an entire invasion fleet? We don't, Vilgax replied. We let them come to us. He turned to his guards. Secure XJ-9 and salvage what technology you can from her vessels. Then return to the fleet with this message: deploy all forces to Earth's defense. The guards hesitated, clearly surprised by this order. Did I stutter? Vilgax growled. Move. As his forces rushed to comply, Vilgax turned back to the unlikely alliance. The hybrid expect Earth to be defended by plumbers alone. They do not anticipate my fleet arriving to support them. Why would you defend Earth? Ben asked, still suspicious despite their recent cooperation. Because, young Tennyson, Earth now holds the key to saving the hybrid, and by extension, preventing a galactic war that would devastate countless worlds. Vilgax gestured to Azimuth. The creator, his technology, and now components from the Omnitrix that might prove crucial. Ben studied Vilgax for a long moment before nodding slowly. Grandpa always said you were a strategic genius. I guess he was right. Indeed, Vilgax replied with what might have been the ghost of a smile. Now, we have preparations to make if we're to save your world and mine. Max Tennyson stood in Plumber Headquarters Command Center, coordinating Earth's defenses with grim efficiency. Vilgax's warning had given them precious time to prepare, but against the approaching hybrid armada, even those preparations seemed insufficient. All civilian populations within primary target zones have been evacuated to underground shelters, reported a plumber officer. Orbital defenses are at maximum readiness, but simulations suggest they'll only slow the hybrid fleet for approximately 17 minutes. Then we make those 17 minutes count, Max replied, studying the tactical display. Status of the null void projectors. Online and calibrated, sir, but their range is limited. We'd need the hybrid ships to be within Earth's upper atmosphere for effective targeting. By which point they could already begin planetary bombardment, Max concluded grimly. Keep the projectors as our fallback option. A communication alert sounded, indicating an incoming transmission from deep space. Priority signal from Tetrax's vessel, sir. Max activated the channel immediately. Ben. Gwen. Are you alright? Ben's face appeared on the main screen. We're okay, Grandpa. But there's been a development. We're inbound to Earth with Azimuth, Tetrax, and... He hesitated, Vilgax. Max's expression darkened. Vilgax is with you? Voluntarily? It's complicated, Ben admitted. But he's bringing his fleet to help defend Earth against the hybrid. His fleet? To defend Earth? Max repeated incredulously. Ben, this has trap written all over it. Azimuth's tiny form appeared beside Ben. Normally I would agree with your assessment, Max. But circumstances have aligned in an unexpected manner. Vilgax has evolved in his thinking. He's still Vilgax, Max countered. Yes, Azimuth conceded. But perhaps not the Vilgax you knew. The Omnitrix appears to have affected him precisely as I designed it to, fostering understanding through experience. Max looked unconvinced. What's he getting out of this alliance? The chance to implement Project Chimera, Ben explained. But in a targeted way, with Azimuth's supervision. It actually makes sense, Grandpa. The hybrid are dying from genetic degradation, and Vilgax wants to save them despite their attempts to wipe out all other life. To prevent galactic destabilization, Max surmised, beginning to understand the strategic logic. And to prove the Omnitrix's potential for species preservation. Precisely, came Vilgax's voice as he moved into view behind Ben. Max Tennyson. We meet again, under circumstances neither of us could have anticipated. Max's eyes narrowed. If this is some elaborate deception, Vilgax, it is not, Vilgax interrupted firmly. The hybrid threat is real. Their extinction would trigger conflicts that would cost billions of lives across dozens of systems. Pragmatism alone would justify this temporary alliance, even without the Omnitrix's influence on my perspective. Max studied his old enemy carefully, searching for signs of deception. Finding none, he finally nodded. Coordinates for fleet arrival transmitted. But understand this, any deviation from defensive operations will be met with immediate response. Understood, Vilgax replied simply. We arrive in 30 minutes. The hybrid, in 45. Prepare your forces accordingly. As the transmission ended, Max turned to his officers, who awaited orders with uncertain expressions. Sir, one ventured hesitantly. Are we really allying with Vilgax? Max's weathered face showed the weight of the decision. We're accepting his help against a greater threat. But keep weapon systems locked on his vessels the moment they enter orbit. Trust but verify, that's our protocol today. He returned his attention to the tactical display, watching as new indicators appeared representing Vilgax's approaching fleet. And may whatever gods are watching help us all, he added quietly. The skies above Earth filled with ships as two fleets took position, the Plumber's defensive armada bolstered by Vilgax's Chimerian warships. An uneasy alliance formed battle lines as sensors detected the approaching hybrid invasion force dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Aboard Vilgax's command shuttle, which had docked with the Plumber orbital headquarters, final preparations were underway. Azimuth worked feverishly, combining components from the Omnitrix, Ultimatrix, and salvaged Nematrix to create a targeted genetic modification device. Remarkable engineering, despite its flawed purpose, the Galvan commented, examining XJ9's technology. She nearly succeeded in creating a functional anti-Omnitrix. Can you make it work with Project Chimera? Vilgax asked, watching the creator's progress. The energy projection capabilities are exactly what we need, Azimuth confirmed. Combined with the Omnitrix's genetic repair protocols and the Ultimatrix's evolutionary function, we can create a targeted beam that will rewrite the hybrid Supreme Commander's DNA while maintaining his consciousness and identity. Ben, who had been watching the procedure with fascination, looked up. But he still has to agree to it, right? The hybrid aren't exactly known for being reasonable. Hence the fleet, Vilgax replied. First, we demonstrate that their invasion will fail. Then, we offer an alternative to extinction. Speaking of the fleet, Gwen interjected from a nearby console, hybrid vessels have entered the outer solar system. Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. Max entered the laboratory, having maintained a respectful distance from Vilgax until now. My officers report your fleet is fully integrated with our defense grid. I must admit, your commanders are remarkably efficient. They understand the stakes, Vilgax replied. And the unique nature of this alliance. Max nodded, then turned to his grandchildren. Ben, Gwen, I need a moment with our guest. The children exchanged glances before stepping outside with Tetrax, leaving Max alone with Vilgax and the preoccupied Azimuth. Something on your mind, Tennyson? Vilgax asked, already anticipating the conversation. Many things, Max admitted. But primarily this, I've fought you for decades. I've seen you conquer worlds, enslave populations, and pursue power at any cost. This apparent change in perspective. You doubt its authenticity, Vilgax finished for him. As you should. In your position, I would do the same. Then convince me, Max challenged. Why should I believe the Omnitrix has changed you when nothing else ever has? Vilgax was silent for a moment, considering the question with unexpected thoughtfulness. Have you ever transformed with the Omnitrix, Tennyson? No. Then you cannot truly understand. Vilgax raised the device on his wrist. This is not merely a weapon or tool. It is experience, direct, immediate, comprehensive. I have been a Pyronite, feeling the rush of flame as my natural state. A Galvan, with thought processes so accelerated that the universe seems to move in slow motion. A Petrosapian, understanding the crystalline harmony that connects their species. He stepped closer to Max. I have lived as dozens of species I once considered beneath me. Felt their strengths, their weaknesses, their unique perspectives. How could that not change one's understanding of the universe? Understanding doesn't automatically lead to compassion, Max pointed out. No, Vilgax agreed. But it does lead to reassessment. What I once saw as inferior, I now recognize as simply different. What I perceived as weakness, I now understand as alternative adaptation. His eyes locked with Max's. My goals haven't changed, Tennyson. I still seek to expand my empire. But my methods, my purpose, those have evolved. Before Max could respond, the station's alert system blared. Hybrid fleet has accelerated. Arrival in 5 minutes. Both rushed to the command center, where tactical displays showed the hybrid armada approaching much faster than predicted. They must have detected our combined fleet and pushed their engines beyond safe parameters, Tetrax observed. Typical hybrid arrogance, Vilgax commented. They'd rather risk ship integrity than appear cautious. Azimuth hurried in, carrying the modified device. It's ready, but untested. We'll have one chance to use it on the Supreme Commander. How do we even identify which ship carries their leader? Gwen asked. We don't need to, Vilgax replied. Hybrid protocol dictates that in any major offensive, the Supreme Commander contacts the primary target directly before attack, a final opportunity to surrender. So we wait for his transmission, Ben realized. Vilgax nodded. And prepare our response. The minutes ticked by as the hybrid fleet approached Earth's defensive perimeter. Ships moved into position, weapons powered and shields raised on both sides. Then, as predicted, a transmission cut across all channels. Attention, defenders of Earth, came a cold, imperious voice. This is Supreme Commander Rian Rasik III of the Hybrid. Your planet harbors technology and knowledge that threatens the purity of our existence. Surrender Azimuth of the Galvan and all Omnitrix technology, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will ensure your suffering extends until the last of your kind expires. Max activated the communication system. This is Max Tennyson of Earth's Defense Force. We have no intention of surrendering either Azimuth or his technology. Furthermore, we have information vital to the hybrid survival. Irrelevant, the Supreme Commander dismissed. Your extinction is unnecessary, Vilgax interrupted, joining the transmission. Supreme Commander, I am Vilgax, Emperor of the Chimerian Hammer Fleet now allied with Earth. Our combined forces are more than capable of repelling your invasion. A moment of stunned silence followed before the hybrid leader responded with evident disgust. The DNA defiler himself. Your presence only confirms the corruption that must be purged. My presence offers you salvation, Vilgax countered. Your species faces extinction within 3 generations due to genetic degradation. I possess the means to correct this fatal flaw while maintaining your genetic identity. Lies, the Supreme Commander hissed. Our bloodlines are pure. Your purity is killing you, Azimuth joined in. I am Azimuth, creator of the Omnitrix. Our scans of hybrid biology confirm terminal genetic degradation resulting from generations of inbreeding. The scientific evidence is irrefutable. Another pause, longer this time. Even if this were true, the Supreme Commander finally replied, we would rather die pure than live corrupted by inferior DNA. Then you're not just dying, Ben said suddenly, stepping forward. You're committing suicide. And taking half the galaxy with you. How is that honorable? The Supreme Commander seemed taken aback by the human child addressing him directly. You dare question hybrid honor, human? I'm questioning hybrid logic, Ben replied firmly. If you're so superior, shouldn't you be smart enough to survive? Adapt? Evolve? Instead, you're choosing extinction because you're too proud to admit you need help. Murmurs could be heard in the background of the hybrid transmission, other commanders reacting to Ben's words. Enough, the Supreme Commander declared. This discussion is pointless. Prepare to, one demonstration, Vilgax interrupted. Before you commit your species to extinction, allow us to demonstrate our solution. Send a single representative, yourself, if you dare. See the evidence, then make your decision. The transmission went silent as the Supreme Commander apparently consulted with his subordinates. The tense minutes stretched as both fleets maintained position, weapons locked but not yet firing. Finally, the response came. I will board your station with guards. Any treachery will result in immediate planetary bombardment, regardless of my fate. Agreed, Max replied. Docking bay coordinates transmitted. As the transmission ended, Ben turned to the others with a mix of hope and skepticism. Did that actually work? He's coming here. Hybrid Honor Code, Tetrax explained. Once challenged directly about courage, the Supreme Commander had little choice but to accept or lose face before his subordinates. Psychological warfare, Vilgax added with a hint of respect. Well played, young Tennyson. Ben shrugged. I just said what I was thinking. Sometimes, Azimuth noted, that is precisely what's needed. He held up the modified device. Now, we must prepare for his arrival. This device will work only at close range, and will have mere seconds to implement it once I activate the genetic key. As preparations continued, Vilgax approached Ben privately. Your direct challenge to the hybrid leader was unexpected. And effective. Thanks. Ben replied uncertainly. It raises an interesting question, Vilgax continued. Azimuth selected you as the Omnitrix's intended wielder. I initially assumed this was due to your compatible genetic structure, but perhaps there was more to his choice. Ben glanced toward Azimuth, who was busy giving Gwen final instructions. What do you mean? The Galvan could have chosen anyone with compatible DNA, Vilgax explained. But he chose a child who instinctively challenges authority when it defies logic or compassion. Perhaps the Omnitrix's true purpose requires not just compatible genetics, but compatible ethics. Before Ben could respond, alarms indicated the approach of the hybrid shuttle. The conversation would have to wait. The Supreme Commander arrived with 4 DNA guards, his towering white form radiating contempt as he entered the station's conference room. His red eyes scanned those assembled, Max, Ben, Gwen, Azimuth, Tetrax, and Vilgax, before focusing on the latter. The great conqueror, allying with humans, he observed disdainfully. How far you something went wrong with this response, please try again. Write the next chapter right after this. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.